not where I'm supposed to be. What am I doing with myself? Hello! I was looking at the songs, trying to pull them up. Where are we? Continue. There we go. Witch on the Holy Night 2. We're really doing this. We're really going to go fight the sister. Next episode. This is our day. This is our night. Wait, why can't I hear anything? This was working a moment ago. Okay. I got the... The golden wolf's ears stood pointed, twitching in response to the sounds around it. Okay, there we go. Its meal finished, it curled up into a ball in anticipation of nap time and yawned half from boredom. The old, abandoned classroom had fulfilled its purpose many moons ago. For a month, the wolf had spent his time resting on top of a heap of disheveled desks. His name was Lou Beowulf. What are you doing? My cat was playing with... something. It looks like a cap. I don't know where she got it. He was a purebred werewolf named after the sun at his birthplace and a hero of legend upon leaving there. It goes without saying, he was not from this country. He came from a land deep within the European wilderness surrounded by mountains and forests. His homeland was a realm no human had ever set foot in. In their isolated world, forgotten by time, a diminishing race of werewolves lived in peace. This was where Beowulf first appeared. In a cave on the outskirts of their village, the werewolves found a child bearing the same golden coat as their ancestors. The child was sleeping soundly, as if in his natural habitat. The village welcomed their new member with open arms. 2,000 years ago, years of advancing civilization had been cruel to them. As the forests were destroyed, valleys unearthed, and waters polluted, the werewolf birth rate dwindled. They were now facing one birth a decade. A child's golden coat deviating from the typical gray or white, and shared only by their ancestors, who were treated as gods, felt like a sign their prayers had been answered. A bloodline in atrophy, the werewolves were forced to embrace change. This radiant child at least temporarily made them forget about their troubles. Alas, as time passed, their hopes turned to disappointment. The golden wolf was not their salvation. For some reason, Lou, that ray of golden sunshine, remained a child. Decades passed, and still he did not grow, forever young, immortal, cursed. He searched the village for his birth mother, but to no avail. He searched the village for someone who might understand his plight, but to no avail. Over hundreds of years, he came to realize something. He was different. Very different. Neither male nor female. Neither strong nor weak. Ignorant of life and death, joy and fear. That thing's a spirit born of nature. Might look like us werewolves, but don't let that fool you. But the child himself needed not conjecture to know his own true nature. He was perfect, and therefore he was alone. To the golden wolf, the world was too small, and that's why, indeed, that was the very reason. He wanted to know what life was. He wanted to know loss. If he was all-powerful, he wanted to know the mystery behind his all-powerfulness. Because as it was, his existence was meaningless. Damn, make me care for the werewolf! What the hell, man? This isn't fair! You're not supposed to care about the enemy! The golden wolf was at a loss, as were the werewolves around him. They revered him, but at the same time wanted nothing to do with him. Lou moved back to the cave he was discovered in and resigned himself to a life of seclusion. Lou? Like the sun god Lou? I thought it was short for Lucero. That's one heck of a coincidence. And then one day, a quirky mage came to visit the village. You're too loud, Miss Toko. Why do you have to be so dramatic all the time? From his place on top of the rubble, Bayo peered into the hallway. He thought his fussy master was busy dealing with Misaki City's ley lines, but she was engrossed in making traps. 1 month passed since they made the dilapidated building their makeshift workshop. Creating a new trap for intruders became a daily pursuit of Toko's. You worry about your safety. And what about the other creatures? Having been like this since birth, knowing neither infancy nor dotage, he thought differently than others. For he was perfect from the day he was born, never declining, never improving. As such, he had no comprehension of weakness. Childlike, fickle, and without morals, he had no concept of good and bad, as either a human or a wolf. A beautiful creature disconnected from the world around him, he was on top of all other creatures. With one exception, his master Toko Aozaki. She showed him a sparkling, delicious world, and above all, he found her scent refreshing. To him, the world was divided into what was cool and what was not. Your preference and leisure pursuits were no consequence to him, and he never took gender into account. The only thing that mattered to him was whether a person's life was logical and therefore cool. Toko Aozaki had her faults, but she smelled good. Finish your lunch, Bayo. Bayo's master entered the classroom, presumably done with her traps for the day. It's showtime tonight. Just keep it together until then. Sometimes, like now, she would nag him, but on the whole, his master pleased him. In reality, the contract binding her to him was not particularly powerful. If he wanted to, he could tear her to pieces at any time. No human could restrain him. However, he had no intention of killing Toko in exchange for his freedom, and there was a reason for this. In order to move about freely in human society, he needed someone like her. As long as she did not offend him, he had no reason to rock the boat. However, finally, the main event. I was getting tired of waiting, Miss Toko. The promise she had made him in the cave and the reality of their situation had begun to come apart at the seams. Come here. I'll let you fight the most powerful mystic there is. He was compliant up till now, but his patience was wearing thin. The fight with the newest magician last night was an enormous letdown. Oh, hush. I was just as disappointed as you were. I'm not that bummed, but why won't the girl use it? Because she can't? His master's expression turned serious. Not in agreement at the wolf's question, though, for she had already asked herself the same and many other similar questions. No. Here she's better off dying than to use it, I suppose. That doesn't make any sense. She almost died because she didn't use it. Which proves my point. It must be too terrifying to use. Toko finished in her head. She stopped short of voicing it and chuckled at her emotional outburst. Sure, I can't even imagine what it must be. Still, this change is nothing. Whatever sort of miraculous mystic her magic is, as long as she remains a mage, she can't win. With those words, Bayo's master walked out of the room, emphasizing that his role in all this was to face Aoko only at that very moment. True magic, huh? The bored look in his eyes shifted. He recalled the taste of that girl, his long tongue sliding over his chainsaw-like fangs. Make no mistake, he would finish his meal. He was the oldest werewolf, the golden god of the forest. For as long as he could remember, no. From the moment he appeared, he had been the most powerful creature of all. Damn! All man-made mystics were trash before him. Magecraft was laughable, and even mystics' artificial miracles were futile. Their very existence was an insult to him. After all, that was the deal. When the time comes, I dig right in. That was the extent of their pact. Once he had dealt with this so-called true magic, he was free. His eyes burned with the wolf inside of him, his fanged maw twisting into sadistic, beastly grin. Witch on the Holy Night too. Damn, you coming over here making me give a damn about the wolf. I care more about the wolf than I do Awazaki, the older one. It was just 7 p.m. Misaki High School's old building stood silently. While light from the city reached the area, the forest and the mountains kept the area hushed. Nothing unusual. During winter vacation, the old building, still covered in yesterday's snow, was rarely used. Without signs of life, such unused structures were mere monuments of what once was, nothing more. The old school building would remain that way until the start of the new semester. Behind it, the best forests grew darker by the minute. If the building had died in just under 2 weeks of vacation, what had become the forest over the years? The wall of overgrown trees filtered out of the noise of the city and most of the moonlight. An otherworldly realm? Take two! An otherworldly remain had taken root, not even 2 miles away from town. Piercing the cold night air, footsteps crunched through the powdery snow. No traps this way. So, what's the plan? Sneak into the old school building? Yeah, she already knows we're here. Why hide? And what would we do once we were in her hideout? We're not here to steal anything. What about the element of surprise? If we could do that, it'd make our job easier, but playing ninja isn't really my thing, nor yours for that matter. And anyway, we're not the only ones out for blood tonight. The sound of their footsteps stopped in unison. The old, forgotten Misaki High School building stood before them. What used to be the schoolyard was now a barren snowscape. Reclaimed by the forest, the building looked a shell of its former self. The surrounding trees resembled standing mourns at a funeral. Talk about impatient. There's still 4 hours until the time limit. Alone in the middle of the white altar was the lone, scarred red mage. As she came out of the forest, Aoko lowered herself slightly, scowling at her distant target. Next to her, Alice stood motionless. The bare branches of the trees cast long, thorny shadows. Aoko was reminded of Sleeping Beauty, except this mage wasn't nearly as pleasant as the princess in that. Not to mention, she wasn't sleeping, and there was no prince. Regardless, this princess came out of her schoolhouse castle to greet her challengers. Pushing yourself in that condition, you do make your big sister worry, Aoko. Toko grinned faintly. Aoko fought back to the urge to respond. Meanwhile, Alice stood in silence, uninterested in sibling rivalry. Toko stood about 100 feet away. With their senses sharpened through magecraft and the silence of the forest, they could hear each other perfectly. The golden wolf was nowhere to be seen. Toko faced the two girls alone. Where's the wolf? Now, wolf has a reason to be here. Alice's black overcoat and winter hat were typical items of clothing for a mage battle. A few paces in front of her was Aoko, whose combat garb was comparatively out of place in Misaki High School uniform. She had asked Alice to bring a change of clothes for her, but there must have been some misunderstanding. Though it was a trivial miscommunication, Toko seemed to think it had some special meaning. Before we start, mind if I ask something? I can't help but be curious, and this is probably my last chance to ask, but is that seriously what you're gonna fight in, Naoko? Toko spoke clearly, and despite the distance, was able to communicate her deep-seated scorn without trouble. Aoko would rather attack than engage in small talk, but she decided to take the bait. Don't lie. You had plenty of chances to ask me. 4 times, including today. Well, this is my job right now, so I think it's fitting. Besides, my fashion's ahead of the times. Aoko was sure to emphasize her words. For a split second, Toko's eyes narrowed. Figures. Same bad taste as always. Thanks. It's actually a relief hearing that from a creepy puppet maker. Took the words right out of my mouth to describe her, girl. Took the words right out. With that, the two fell silent and glared at each other. Their bloodlust cut through the thick, cold air like a knife. While the two of them sized each other up, Alice surveyed the area around Toko. There was no indication anyone or anything was lying in wait near her. Perhaps she should see if the werewolf was still in the old school building. Maybe Toko didn't feel like Aoko and Alice were much of a threat in her injured state. Or was she really not expecting a counterattack so early, so the werewolf wasn't ready? No, he's around here somewhere. He is definitely around here somewhere. He has the element of surprise. After some contemplation, Alice surmised it was the former. She really was going to fight alone. Her arsenal comprised her mystic eyes and rune magecraft. That was more than enough to deal with Aoko and Alice in their current state. Alice, all I need is one shot. Aoko signaled to Alice behind her with the movement of her finger. Alice had no objections. The original plan was for her to keep the werewolf busy. With the mirror as a backup, Aoko was hoping to catch Toko off guard. They had a few other cards up their sleeve, but the fact remained that as mages, their attacks wouldn't affect the werewolf, so they decided to ignore it and focus on taking out Toko. Not the best strategy, but it was all the two of them could come up with. But they had been thrown a curveball. Toko had the upper hand, so she was reluctant to use the beast. Aoko wasn't about to let this opportunity go to waste. By distracting her with sibling banter, she would settle things before the werewolf even showed up. My turn to ask a question. How are the fields working out? Oh, please. It's barely been a day. I haven't touched them yet. Can't rush these things. Besides, I want what's inside the ley lines, not the bounded fields. I have no plans to reset them. Tearing into you is probably way faster than tearing into the land anyway. I knew it. All the more reason I can't let you become a magician. Aoko's blue eyes burned brightly with a fiery fighting spirit. Even though her sister was ready to pounce, Toko remained motionless, but for her mouth which twisted into a smirk. A magician, huh? Got to admit, I like the sound of that. The magic crests that weren't implanted in me and the true magic of the Aozaki family. But it's fine. I do want them, but I can get them on my own. Oh wait, did you come here to show me your magic, Aoko? Toko's words came out flatly, but her eyes mocked her sister. It was true, however, that if Aoko wanted to defeat Toko, her best chance would be to use the mysterious true magic. The only problem was that she couldn't. If she could, she would have used it to avoid being mauled last night. Aoko Aozaki couldn't use true magic. Toko believed she needed to fulfill some kind of condition. The protection their grandfather placed on the formula was to prohibit miracles from being easily realized. However, that wasn't because he was concerned about the human world. No. It was no exaggeration to say he'd feel nothing if magic leveled the entire city. Truth was, true magic never had any conditions. Aoko was being held back by trauma. These 5 privileges, the only powers of their kind, were bound by cognitive seals. That's why Toko looked down on her naive little sister. So weak, a body incapable of handling magic could be cut down with a mere sword. Aoko knew that better than anyone else, which is why she couldn't forgive her sister's ridicule. Just try using true magic, huh? A pathetic taunt. If that was how she wanted to play, then so be it. Have it your way. With a burst of pure rage, Aoko made her move. Her colorless shoes spread across the unpainted snowfield. Like a stone skipping across the water, as Aoko charged forward, she disappeared. Only her footprints advanced like bullet holes in the snow. Toko held her ground. Concealment was an elementary magecraft. More than likely, the power came from one of Alice's trinkets. It was a simple yet effective countermeasure to Mystic Eyes. Toko's Mystic Eyes used to lock a property to bind an opponent. It did not have the logo's property to discern truth through an illusion. Once the magecraft's working were revealed, its weakness was exposed. Still the same floppy footwork. In a mere 4 seconds, her opponents had closed 10 yards and was speeding up. It appeared that she had given up upon a mage battle and was going to move in for melee. The other girl, Alice Konji, didn't take a single step. A suicide charge? Open the friendly fire from the rear. Even with Alice's protection, this is done. You'll regret this, Aoko. Your trump card has to come from your own deck. Sneering, Toko raised her left arm, pointing it out in front of her threateningly. 10 more yards. Unfortunately, her footprints gave way to her position. So, Toko began engraving a rune into the air. Before she could finish, Aoko's footprints stopped. She was still too far for close combat. What a strange place to end her attack. No. Wait. Could she really stop so suddenly at that speed? She jumped. Toko made a snap decision. She quickly raised her outstretched arm toward the sky as if saluting the moon. So we will. Flames tore through the air. The rune carved into the body above her, bathing it in a pillar of flames. No internal resistance spell could help. Rather than simply burning their target, their runes wrapped them in a wreath of flame. The assailant screamed, falling onto the snow-covered ground. In agony, she extended a burning hand out of the hellish fire as if begging for mercy. It was the stuff of nightmares. The snow melted as the fire burned the attacker alive. Chirp, chirp! The movement was too far theatrical to be Aoko. Toko had already turned her gaze to Alice. She hadn't been watching the burning corpse at all. Toko knew it wasn't Aoko from the moment the body fell to the ground. Another clown bites your family there. Irritated, Toko glared at Alice. While Aoko had vanished into thin air, she hadn't moved at all. Blue energy traced a circle around where she stood. It was the force of a 4-bar Grand Magecraft mobilizing her magic crest. Toko only had a single action runes. No, she hadn't mastered anything above 2 bars to begin with. us! The rune formed in the magic circle. The rune of withdrawal, was evoked, and Aoko's concealment was undone, allowing Toko to utilize her mystic eyes. Within her open pupil, the infinitely mirrored eyes captured their target in an endless hell. But the mage's sight was literally split in two. The space in front of Aoko was distorted, obscuring her form like an icy mist. Toko's eyes were like an opposing mirror, and this was like sticking a one-way mirror on a triangulation point. With her vision split in two, she couldn't lock on to Aoko. The mirror of slumber, Toko. Aoko's deep in the fork in the road. The mirror creates. From where you are, you'll never be able to see her. Alice explained without concern. Due to the herb Toko made Alice swallow, she was still unable to use her own magecraft. However, she could use ploys already in motion without using magical energy, such as the mansion's mirror and the aimless little blue bird. Finally, the magic bullet was loaded. Set route. Direct. Current. Raising her right arm to reveal her luminescent crest, Toko took aim at her target 100 feet away. Magical energy coursed through her gun barrel arm. From the moment she had received Alice's invisibility, Aoko had began chanting her magecraft. It took Toko a few seconds to notice. Aoko produced more spins in the awakened magic circuits than she had ever done before. She readied not snap nor draw. Instead, she advanced past her third process, a compression of magical energy, a magic blow. If she fired the blue ether that gathered before her, it would fly with the force of 10 tons. Using her magic crest to multiply the energy and machine gun her target, it was enough power to demolish even the old building behind her. Toka! Aoko stared intensely at her sister, ready to fire. Toko had no time to counterattack or even the speed to evade. In fact, she didn't move, implied she knew it better than anyone. Acceptance filled her eyes, not fear. Aoko didn't hesitate. She squeezed the trigger in her right hand. Magic bullet, configuration, convergent launch, circuit, fire! The last word came out like a scream. Under the impact of the ether, the surrounding snow melted and flew around. This girl's gonna survive it. We all know it. This fight can't be over. Toko was engulfed in dirt. She missed, didn't she? No way she could have survived Aoko's magic bullet. It contained every bit of Aoko's magical energy she could muster. Viewing the chaos, Aoko confirmed her victory. And yet, somehow she still felt bitter. But then, choosing to deal with the torrent of magical energy she swallowed up later, Toko tutted at Aoko's childishness. Her disappointment was so deep, it bordered on despair. It's a little late now, but listen up anyway, Aoko. Never play your trump card first. You'll lose. Her voice cold and aloof, she was completely unscathed. The mage stood in the snowfield, not a single speck of dirt on her overcoat. Just before the bullet reached Toko, she deflected it with magical energy of the same level. Aoko could only stare at the scene before her. The negation of her magecraft hadn't shocked her, though. Leaf-like objects floated behind her sister. Aoko stared like she was living a nightmare. Countless magic crests poured out from Toko's back. It all happened in an instant. The magic bullet approaching like a tsunami, Toko lightly snapped her fingers. causing a stream of letters to rush out from behind her. Text became art. Golden flowers bloomed. Wow! That is fucking gorgeous. I have no words. Holy shit. There must have been hundreds. All sorts of magecraft from even beyond Western Europe. This girl is a prodigy. The kind normally carved into the flesh of a mage. This girl engraved runes into her flesh? The kind Toko Aozaki shouldn't possess. She did something. The kind only followers of those schools should know. Blossoming magic crests brighter than the moon. Inscribed in the air, they formed a totem pole, a guardian beast, to protect Toko. Now you see, I don't need to rely on Baal. Toko's expression was steely. Victory was in her grasp, and there was no room to rest on her laurels. So, that mirror concealed you. You used it to detect, capture, and act as backup. Impressive. Not quite one of the great three, but a versatile and, might I add, exceptional ploy. Quit patronizing us. You're just upset. You just got duped. Not at all. I'm just giving credit where credit is due. It was me who worked with Mindster on the thing in the first place. I'm just kind of annoyed that someone got carried away and couldn't help but add functions to it. Rather than coming at me disguised as you, you used it to distract me with while you charged up your huge attack. Alice avoided my mystic eyes while you focused on offense. Not a bad plan. You know, all in all, you did pretty well. Toko recounted their strategy, sharing her impression as she went. Aoko could not take her eyes off Toko's blooming magic crests. Only Alice was paying close attention to Toko's words. I'm afraid in this is the end of the line. It's just such a shame, Aoko. I can't believe you're still using such magecraft after 2 years. You could have become a world-class marksman. Toko snapped her fingers again. The floating crest began to glow more brightly. What are those? These things just got a lot scarier. Aoko whispered to Alice standing next to her as she held her hand. She could not risk turning around. The second she took her eyes off Toko, the fight would be over. As you can see, they're magic crests. As hard as it is to believe. Alice's voice was filled with shock and discomfort. Aoko shared Alice's sentiment. Magic crests were passed down through a family line and took unique forms. At heart, they were merely personalized inscriptions, and technically no different from grimoires. But the reality was far different. Where did she get those? From the wolf? She marry someone? Magecraft had no set form. Without a set shape, the ability to recreate mystics was itself flawed. To craft it into a form required an immeasurable investment of time and devotion. Magic crests were crystallization of a family's desire and ambition, and proof of a successor's lineage. Crests had no effects on their own, but they were ultimately symbol of a family. If no mage was willing to imbue themselves with a crest, or lacked the resolve to merge with it, then the crest's meaning was lost. That was the key difference between a crest and a mere spellbook. Crests could not be shared, and imitating them was pointless. It only stood to reason then, that even if the crests manifesting behind Toko belonged to someone else, only the original owner could benefit from them. Then how did she get these? Those crests have to be what's deflecting my magic bullets. Don't tell me she's... Searching for our answers, Aoko squinted her eyes as she glared at Toko. She knew that copying a crest had no purpose. Only the original inheritor could invoke one. There was only one possible conclusion. I see. If they aren't inscribed on your skin and just floating in the air... Aoko spat a curse at her sister. Toko nodded, pleased at her enemy's quick wit. Wait. The crest didn't suit my body. The crest didn't suit my body, so I fixed them with the space behind me. What? You can do that? Of course, crests like yours that are engraved into the flesh are much better because they can be activated in one go. For me, though, this was the only way. And while I do need to perform an extra step to activate them, they're not mine, so I don't feel any pain. It seems neither physically nor mentally. Then what's the point? Well, she did say to take an extra step. Aoko knew her sister was inhuman, but she never thought she would go this far. Well, you're right about them not suiting you. You stole them from someone else, so your bloodline can never match up. Which means the person or persons you stole them from can't die, so you must have them locked up somewhere. If they died, you couldn't activate their crests. She kidnapped someone? This girl's going to no lengths to take her. This girl is beyond petty. Toko, you... I don't remember anyone complaining. They were asking for it. They should have been better prepared if they wanted to face me. You have someone held captive for their magic. What? There was some rather rude fools who used questionable language. Questionable is beyond where we're at right now, young lady. The amount of felonies that your entire family is committing is just... What? But I think I've been quite real. I've been quite kind, really. They came to kill me, and I let them live. Really, as a fellow mage, I only hope they're okay. You're probably wondering what I've done to them. Among other things. Has she preserved their brains? Or maybe she's just lumped them all into a ball of flesh. As if I do that. We humans centipede this bitch? Put their brain in a jar? I built them a cafe and provided plenty of food, entertainment, sleep, and freedom. Some of them even said they wanted to live like that forever. Huh? Toko's words were hardly believable, but it was clear her crests weren't copies. Alice's scowl deepened. What Toko had described was no discernible benefit in her mind. Why had she gone to the trouble of stealing other mages' crests? It would have been more efficient to break down the crests into components and make replicas. For a skilled puppet master like Toko, she could have made a much more powerful puppet with those crests. It would have made a pawn loyal to her every command at that. Much more useful than any enslaved mage. Why? Toko. That's Toko for you. Once she decides to do something, that's it. Everything's just a means to an end. There's the line, and then there's what she's doing. This is beyond the line. The amount of lines she has crossed is unrecognizable. Listen to this. Listen to this. One time, we were watching TV, and a pizza commercial came on. We both really wanted to eat something greasy. Unfortunately, our super boring family only had the pepperoni. You know my house was on top of the big hill, right? Getting to the city took an hour. But I just had to have the pizza, so I walked it. Could I find a pizza place? Nope, so I walked home empty-handed. It was the tragedy of living in the countryside. Misaki, which had only recently gotten a conveyor belt sushi restaurant, would not see a pizzeria for another 2 years. Then, when I got home, hungry and tired, my damn sister waved at me, all welcome back, with a big slice of pizza hanging from her stupid face. She was like, I tried using rice crackers as a base. When I looked outside, 3 chickens, 1 cow were gone. That's when I realized she had no concept of the value of money, hard work, or fairness. This girl is like, there is no line. Alice agreed. That was pretty crazy. Stupid crap like that means I'm perfectly fine with putting a hole through her chest with a gander shot. I mean, she could have just chanted a single verse from the gematria to get the same effect, but no, she was so obsessed with curses she made a puppet that couldn't even fly. The thought of the puppet doppelganger made her blood boil. It was clear to Aoko now that Toko had done it on purpose to annoy her. Yeah, we got that in the last chapter. The amount of lines does not exist. Toko furrowed her brow at Aoko's verbal assault. She had been stoic up until now, but speaking rudely about her prized puppet was crossing the line. Prized?! If I recall, that puppet had you on the ropes. And for your information, gematria numerology is a Kabbalah secret. I'm a rune specialist, so I don't need to learn anything and everything like you do. Well, I did learn something. One owner of these crests taught me about Celtic bounded fields. Toko looked at the crest over her left shoulder. Its shine was ever radiant, proving that its magecraft was active. I used this castle to seal away grandfather. I trapped that half-yokai druid monk in a tower. Well, I say tower, but it's closer to a mailbox in size. Like that red mailbox you broke, remember? About that big... But it's a cute little bird cage. A bit cramped for one person, but grandfather's more spirit than body. So, I guess it's more appropriate for him anyway. Toko stifled a sinister laugh, her explanation chilling. She done kidnapped her grandfather, apparently. Her cold veneer seemed to slip slightly when it came to her grandfather. Her smile betraying that long, festering hatred she still clung to. Anyway, because I blocked your attack, I can't use this crest for a while. Though, if you'd used true magic, a 3-line crest wouldn't have countered it. You only lost by a slight margin, Naoko. You should be proud. Right then, let's wrap this up. Feel free to fight back, but remember, you're against Bayo. Toko snapped her finger one more time. The golden werewolf was hiding in the old school building. Okay, so there was nothing special. The signal to him echoed eerily through the surrounding woods. Before the echo stopped, Oko shouted back at Alice. Alice, go! The order sounded like a reprimand, but Alice silently obeyed. Without hesitation, she left Aoko behind to handle Toko and made for the forest. If defeat was inevitable, it would be pointless for both of them to die. If one of them could survive, there could be around 3. That was why Aoko decided to be a sacrificial pawn. Now, we know what Toko's trump card is. If Alice can get back to normal, she'll stand a chance. Aoko muttered bitterly to herself as Alice's feet crunched through the snow. Instead of cursing her own death, she cursed the fact she would not see Alice defeat Toko. For what else was there to curse except this? Alice disappeared into the forest. Feeling her fellow mage's presence fade, Aoko continued to glare at her sister. How long do you plan to drag this out? You know what? I hate it when people make me wait. Speaking of waiting, the werewolf Toko had called was nowhere to be seen. It should not have taken him more than a few seconds to come flying out of the old school building. What's the big hurry? He's after Little Red Riding Hood, for the time being. Or rather, Little Black Hat, to force the metaphor. No, we got the point with Little Red Riding Hood. Her tone reeked of irony. Words traveled aimlessly across the schoolyard like a rambling announcement. Aoko stood frozen and dumbfounded. Everything Toko was saying seemed so far away from reality. Alice! Aoko was done from being fooled, so she turned around. The moonlight shining off the fallen snow allowed her to see far into the forest. From the white darkness, a lone boy came into view, walking toward her. He could not have been any taller than Aoko's chest, but he carried Alice over his shoulder with ease. As if she was nothing, he tossed her body upward. She arched through the air for several feet before dropping head first before Aoko's eyes. Her neck would snap on impact. Even though she was wiser not to, Aoko reached out and caught her. Alice's light body weighed heavy as she fell to Aoko's arms. The stitches of her wounds tore, dyeing Aoko's arms crimson. Aoko gritted her teeth, fighting the pain that shot through her body and the sensation of the warm blood. Alice, are you still? Alice did not respond, but Aoko could see she was at least conscious. The werewolf must have ambushed her right after she ran into the woods. Alice bled heavily from where the wolf tore her abdomen open last night, just like he had done to Aoko. You were hiding in the woods this entire time. Cursing her own carelessness, she gently lay Alice's body down. She set her sights on the blood-haired boy, her new target. So, that's how it is, huh? A wolf in little boy's clothing. Even at the face of Aoko's rage, he did not stop smirking. He stared back at the girls, eyes gleaming, twinkling with excitement at the brutality to come. The blonde hair and green eyes she saw last night, and his effeminate features now, seemed ethereal, like he had changed into a being from another planet. You'll feast tonight, Bale. Toko's voice echoed from afar. The boy's grin broadened. Nobody could have expected what came next. Aoko rushed headfirst at the boy. Faster than the robin decoy, she sped, blood dripping from both arms. Toko watched wide-eyed at the spectacle. Alice could only lock on vacant eyes as she laid helplessly on the ground. The werewolf boy was caught off guard by the prey becoming predator. Aoko crossed the 20-foot gap in a second before planting a foot in the snow. It arrested her momentum and pivoted her body like a top. Even if he instantly understood what was coming, the boy wouldn't be able to dodge in time. The neck! Using the momentum from her sprint, she pushed the leg to the ground and sprang up. With deadly timing, her roundhouse kick swung with a wide arc toward the boy's neck, sending an explosion of force to his brainstem. It was an expert display of martial arts, strengthened by magical energy. She'd gotten the hang of close combat while fighting Toko's puppets. The violent kick was powerful enough to shatter a tree trunk. And that boy just takes it like a champ! The boy did not move. Aoko's right shin connected firmly and stopped. A shockwave rippled through his neck. It was the same feedback Aoko had felt when she destroyed the puppet. Even if he wasn't defeated, she had to have severely damaged his spine. As she looked at him to confirm her kill, the boy simply stared back at her, not even bothering to twitch an eyebrow. That must be the leg I bit. I can't believe you went for my neck like that. I mean, wow. As Toko said, that girls instinctively try to spare their own bodies. It was a valiant move, but You wasted it. My hair is as strong as when I'm a wolf. Even my beach flies can stop your kick. The only one to hurt between the two was Aoko. The leg she had lodged in his neck was totally numb, like it had been chopped clean off with a hatchet. You held back too, right? You wanted to protect your leg, I guess. Humans need to forget that kind of thing when fighting me. Still... The boy smiled, basking in Aoko's shock and awe. She couldn't free her leg. No doubt, as soon as she regained her footing, he would tear her stomach open. Well, you minced it. You're a mincemeat anyway. So, I guess it doesn't matter. See? What a waste. It was just healed up too. Aoko was not sure, but it felt like he had sunk his finger into the flesh of her right leg. Whose voice is that? Because it is terrifying, but I know it from somewhere. Let's play a game. Which the Holy Night. He reminds me of what's his face from. Oh shit! What's his name? It's from Black Butler, the big, strong, muscular dude. I know it from somewhere. Apparently, she plays Freerin in Shadowverse. Bunch of crossover. Anya! Anya's the same voice as Bayo. So is Rio. Holy, that is terrifyingly talented. Freerin and Bayo have the same voice actor. What? Sejuna 2? Who else? Who else? Because this list is just like... Oh, whoa. I swear her voice is... It's his, her, I don't know what to call it. They, them? I can't believe... Okay. That is horrifying as an actress to see. Freaking Freerin to this. Just... He was right about her leg. She barely had any feeling in it. It had been completely paralyzed after the last attack, and was now back in the same horrid state. Except this time, instead of being torn to pieces, it had been crushed to the bone. Her leg might have been numb, but the look of it was enough to horrify her the way it was crumpled. All that blood. Any normal person would have died from shock. As if thinking about someone else, Alpha considered how cruel magic crests could be. Huh? Still some life in your eyes. I don't really want to torture you. You should drop the tough act. The boy thrust his hand out at Oko's chest. Her consciousness flickered from a sudden pain of a stake. No, a child's fist piercing her torso. Scenery flew by. She soared through the air like a rag doll tossed away by a bored child. Just like Alice a moment ago, she tumbled through the air and hit the ground hard. Her right leg was crushed, her chest caved in. It was as if her heart had been scooped out of her chest. Each gasp, breathing, left her wanting more. Was this what it was like to see stars? The terrifying part was the pain. It never let up. Desperately trying to suck in oxygen, she could still feel his fist. Leisurely, the boy strolled across the snow toward Aoko's broken body, his red tongue gliding over his lips. He stared at his prey, who was desperately trying to breathe, his eyes filled with glee. Aoko bit down the temptation to drift away, even though she could find no reason to fight on. The snow had broken her fall slightly, but her death was all but certain. The fist-sized crater in her chest and her mangled leg made sure of that. Even though she knew she was a broken mess, Magic Crest frantically worked to resurrect her heart. But why? The sight of Toko in the distance was the only thing that kept her conscious. Her sister looked surprised for some reason, like she was witnessing some strange phenomenon that wasn't like her. Wondering what it was, Aoko tried to stay conscious. What's happening? Feebly trying to raise her head, she looked to where Toko was staring. Why did she look like that when she was so close to victory? You're out here leaving me with that? No! His heart was beating faster than normal. The fragmented and disturbing images kept returning, and he desperately pushed them to the back of his mind. They were thoughts that shook his resolve. He did his best to file them away into an unseen corner of his consciousness. Right now, he could only focus on controlling his breathing and his exertion. Just stay calm, he repeated to himself. He had not stopped for a second since leaving the church, even without giving a thought to what he would do next. So many traffic lights, so many people. It was Christmas. There was no way he would find a taxi. Waiting for one was not an option. It was why he had put his trust in his legs. He dashed through the city streets. He had to find a shorter route than last night. His heart was ready to jump out of his chest, pounding like a hammer against a fire bell. He had no intention of giving up yet, but he could not seem to calm himself down. In his precarious condition, even surrender seemed too great of an effort to spare. Visions of horrible outcomes flashed through his mind. No. Calm. He needed to stay calm. That was his only weapon. He was painfully aware he was powerless. Best thing he could do was to keep his head on straight. While he wrangled with his mind, his pulse seemed to quicken with every step. Dude, go save your woman! Go save your girl! The forest was faintly lit by the moon. That was more than enough on such a bare mountain. He followed two sets of footprints. Ahead lay a situation he had nothing to do with, just like at the amusement park. Even if you go, there's nothing you can do for them. The only effect her admonishing words had was to hasten his pace. He pushed the ground with his legs even harder, trying to leave his doubt in the kicked-up snow behind him. Of course, he was powerless. The pain in his chest told him so. At best, he would be useless, and at the worst, he would be a liability. He recalled the binding spell placed on him at the church. It did not matter. His body told him he would regret being torn to pieces less than if he did nothing. Not once did his legs fail him as he ran through the woods, though it felt as though his heart could at any moment. His weakness screamed at him from within. Just like back at the amusement park, he was beyond reason or circumstances now. Ultimately, I just want to help her. That was all he really desired. His heart pounded with vigor as he ran through the dark wintry forest. Only one thing gnawed in his mind. Not concern for the girls, not anger towards Toko. The red roses bursting forth from her limbs. Screams of agony like childbirth. The harsh reality of something beautiful dying. Nightmare was tenacious. Never again, never ever again did he want to see something like that again, if he could help it. Just ahead was the forest clearing. The moonlight shone on the school building was like a spotlight. Once again, those thoughts crept back. He could not bear seeing something like that again. That was why he ran. But if he had to face it a second time, how could he stay calm? With that thought in mind, he arrived at the clearing. Somehow, his frantic breathing, his rising and lowering shoulders stopped. No exhaustion, no inertia, just blankness, like his mind was frozen in time. This was the second time he felt like this. But the nausea and dizziness from the first time, pathetic whining of the last few weeks, the doubts clouding his mind, they were all gone, displaced entirely from his mind by even stronger emotion. His heart pounded with the force of a sledgehammer. It was primal sound loud enough to bring him to his senses. Sojiro stepped into the clearing, letting out a deep but steady exhale. Although his eyes were locked with the blonde-haired boy's, his concentration was focused inward. Be calm. Be calm. Every fiber of his being worked to control his breathing. The clearing told the story of Aoko and Alice's crushing defeat. Aoko was lying face up in the snow, her right leg bright red and crushed at the thigh. Her eyes were glazed over, but Sojiro could tell she was still bravely fighting. Judging by her spluttering, she had taken a hard blow to the chest or back. Sojiro deduced it was most likely both. Alice's injury seemed less serious than Aoko's. She lay motionless on the ground nevertheless. She was lying across from Aoko face down in the snow, arms out in front, as though pushing herself up was too painful. Before the old school building stood the figure of the mage he had seen before. Paying her no mind, Sojiro began to walk forward. Feeling calmer since arriving at the clearing, he advanced towards Aoko. Toko did nothing to stop him. No one noticed, but the faintest look of worry flickered in her eyes. Are you a friend of theirs, mister? The child werewolf spoke amicably, confident in his victory, and perhaps also eyeing up a new meal. Sojiro ignored him and kept walking towards Aoko. The complete disregard wiped the smile from the boy's face. Still, Sojiro carried on. The beast's feelings were the last thing on his mind. Once he reached Aoko, he looked down at her with a pained expression on his face. Strangely, he was at a loss for words. After a slight hesitation, all he could manage to say was, "That was very polite, Mr. President. That wasn't very polite, Mr. President. You shouldn't have left the church without saying goodbye." His awkward remark was half scolding, half affectionate. You numbskull. Despite the pain in her stomach, Aoko was able to throw an insult his way. Glad to see you still have some fight in you, Awazaki. His voice brightened, as if bearing her bravado. Truth was that she barely had the strength to live. Despite that, Sojiro looked like he wanted to respond in his usual way. Something like, "See, Awazaki, you're too tough to die, even when someone kills you." You know. As soon as she tried to speak, she ran out of breath. Sojiro heard her loud and clear this time. He might have looked absent-minded, but he knew exactly how dangerous the situation was. Aoko knew because his carefree-sounding words did not match his expressionless face. What do you think you're... Before she could say doing, she coughed painfully. Sojiro pressed his fingers to his lips and nodded. Aoko could not quite believe it, but it looked as though Sojiro had gestured for her not to speak. Isn't it obvious? It's the same as last time. If you go down, I step in, right? So, I'm here. Okay. I still can't do anything, but still. Aoko didn't know what to say. She could only look up at him, amazed and awed. The werewolf stared at them, visibly frustrated. After all, he believed himself to be the noblest of all creatures. Ignoring him was treason, punishable by death. Had Toko not been there, he would have sunk his teeth into Sojiro's neck by now. He was sure he had been intimidating enough. However, his prey did not show any signs of fear. It was hard to imagine, but maybe, just maybe, this guy did not view him as a threat. Whatever, as long as the meat is tender, juicy, and filling. I don't care whose it is. Hey you don't mind if I start with you, do you? The boy wolf called out once again. Still not responding, Sojiro raised a hand to his nose. Cool, calm, and collected, paying no mind to the boy, yet keeping an eye on him. Something reeks. Huh? Everyone present was confused. No one seemed to be able to smell anything but him. Oh, what do you smell, mister? Bayo's voice retained his usual arrogance, but was tinged with impatience. The boy was unable to hide his irritation at being ignored. Finally, Sojiro turned to face the boy, just a short distance from him. It's like rotten meat. This is why I hate dogs. His voice was filled with disgust and contempt. Sojiro was mainly speaking to himself, but the werewolf boy had never felt so insulted, even if that was not Sojiro's intent at all. In a moment, the wind picked up, perhaps signaling a change in the werewolf's mood. A fiery gale whipped around, carving patterns in the snow. Sojiro! Sensing he was about to be killed, Aoko desperately tried to move, but her broken body would not respond. After hearing Sojiro's insult, Alice was unsuccessfully struggling to get to her feet too. In complete contrast, Sojiro stood there, firmly and unfazed. This little blonde boy's well of patience had run dry. I get it. You're underestimating me because I look like a kid. Huh? Big mistake. His time playing human was over. Enraged, the boy transformed. Whoa, I just realized that picture. Things just went from 0 to 100. He grew larger and larger, golden fur sprouting from his pale flesh. His His mouth grew razor-sharp fangs. His hands grew claws. Drawing from the magical energy in the air, he transformed into a preternatural beast. A wolf in the shape of a human. Beo? Did I say you could transform? Toko yelled at him, but the werewolf did not respond. He only huffed deep breaths of hot air. Did you really just... That was all Sojiro could say in response to the boy's metamorphosis. Such a transformation was the stuff of nightmares. What was worse, the beast now towered above him. It was enough to make anybody question reality itself. Amazing. Seeing his prey's reaction satisfied the werewolf, and his maw twisted into a satisfied grin. He was a strange one, this guy, but meat was meat. However, the beast's arrogance was short-lived. The prey breathed a sigh of exasperation before speaking. You really are a dog. You could hear a pin drop even in the snow. Aoko, Alice, and Toko were all dumbfounded. Were they really seeing a human not just stare a werewolf down, but insult it to its face? They simply could not believe it. Dude, what the fuck is going on in your head? It was too late. Any trace of the wolf's pride and dignity faded away. The onlookers finally realized that this wolf was serious. So, we about to get some kind of fucking battle. Neither seems to be playing around, and both are 150% done with the other's bullshit. Beo, do not kill him. Beo, do not kill him. But Toko's command fell on deaf ears. The wolf prepared to lunge, his emerald eyes fixed on Sojiro, not 30 feet in front of him. A mere 30 feet. A half second was all he needed. Another half second to bring his claws down and slice his prey from head to toe. You're dead! A roar of joyous, unbridled fury echoed far and wide. It was the only warning the werewolf gave as he exploded towards Sojiro. 1 second. A golden blur swept forth in a furious gust, too fast for his eyes to follow. In the face of the unworldly speed, there was only one thing to do. Sojiro stepped forward, a silent shadow opposite the beastly silhouette of the incoming werewolf. He needed exactly 3 paces. He bet his entire life on around 3 feet of distance. In the blink of an eye, death would be upon him. Yet, he did not show the slightest indication he intended to avoid the lunging behemoth. The wolf's forelegs slammed into the ground, the earth shaking fury. His back muscles tensed up so much they seemed barely contained in his frame. As he swept a raised paw downward, Sojiro's small step neatly evaded the claws, but he had a different motive. He was merely positioning himself for the next move. His intention was never to avoid anything. From the beginning, his mind was focused on but one thing. One point to aim for. One mind. One breath. He picked the perfect opening in the wolf's torso, precise microsecond between contraction, and relaxation. That one point alone was a crack in the dam of life. He punched the werewolf in his chest with his feeble human strength. There was a dull thud and a burst of blood. Twisted flesh and gore were all Sojiro's own. The werewolf's raised claws convulsed. From an insignificant impact, the beast's body was the first to collapse. Then, his spirit. There was a moment of utter incomprehension. The wolf opened his jaw to try to pull air into his lungs. Gasping, he began to topple forward. Hold up! What? The slender figure slipped around his flank. The next blow pierced him like a spear. Ignoring his mangled left arm, the silhouette whirled around the drove, his right elbow into the collapsing werewolf's back. There was another muffled impact. The second strike penetrated to the exact same spot the first strike had, crushing the beast's heart. This time, the blood that flew into the air belonged to the guy who guessed what. The werewolf fell to the ground, choking on his own blood. He did not get up. He showed no sign of life. What? It was over. There was no remorse. No hesitation in that brief act of violence. How? Huh? The perfect, furious golden beast lay still, felled in a mere 3 seconds. Their expression is mine. What? No sane person would have bet on this outcome. No insane person would have bet on this outcome. 100% of the time, that kid should have lost. Who the fuck is this kid? First, he could see the bounded fields, which is supposed to keep him hidden, and now he's over here kicking a werewolf's ass that's just like, oh yeah, fuck your arm. His breathing calm, the victor stood over the fallen behemoth's body. But how? Even as the beast lay crumbled in the snow, he could not grasp what had happened. His heart had ruptured, cutting the blood flow to his body and brain, leaving him helpless. That much he knew. If he were a normal creature, he would be dead. As it was, this was a trifling inconvenience. Once his heart was repaired, his body would heal as well. It was not as if he had been struck by a magecraft exceeding his own mystical nature. This was a little different than a grazed knee. Which is what was so strange. Your heart does not stop from a grazed knee. What did I do wrong? The werewolf frantically searched his memory. He managed to remember right up until the moment he raised his claw. But what had come after that? Given the right transformation, he knew he could withstand even a cannon blast. How could a puny human drop him? Wait. Before that, he had to figure out exactly what his opponent did to him. The moment he got in close, yes, he felt a small impact. The attack was so accurate that it probably only affected his heart. Ridiculous. Even if that was possible, there was no way that alone could stop a werewolf's heart. In the end, no matter how much he thought about it, nothing added up. The answer was out of reach. For a werewolf with no knowledge of being backed into a corner, let alone the limits of human skill. Only one thing was certain. He had lost. He tried to piece together the sequence of events. The explosion in his chest, the flash of white. After that, he was falling over. He took another blow to his back. That was the one that disrupted the heart. This can't be. There's no way I could lose, indeed. It was physically impossible. The boy gnashed his teeth and tensed his body in indignation at this unfair conclusion. Oh, I know. None of this is real. No other werewolf ever managed to lay a claw on me. This pain, this whole situation isn't really happening. It makes no sense. Who on this planet could beat me? Enough thinking. He was ready. From the ground he glared at his enemy to his side. I don't lose. The very next moment, an unknown type of pain coursed down his spine. It had eyes, cold eyes, staring, piercing, colorless. The moon looked more alive. Its arms were broken. Its inhumanely powerful attack had mangled them beyond recognition. If it was in pain, it would have cried out, but it was silent. Was it ever alive? Those dead eyes. He'd seen those eyes. He'd seen eyes like those before. Those eyes were without hatred, without joy, without any feeling behind them all. It was a mindless insect. The werewolf's hair stood on end. What was this creeping chill crawling up his spine? Having never experienced fear, the werewolf did not know what had become of him. Despite countless clashes against other mystics, it had been a human that broke him. That guy is not human! He knew beasts even larger than himself. He knew legendary creatures like himself. He did not know this. He never met such a less imagined, a human-sized bug. The chill down the werewolf's spine was so vicious, it threatened to split him in two. If he moved even an inch, it would crush him like his skull underfoot. In spite of despair gripping him, the boy paradoxically sensed that his opponent would not move at all. Holy fuck. I need a moment to take this in, because... What the fuck? I'm at a loss for words. I don't know what to say. Because nothing makes sense. It's like he's some god that came down from the mountains. This human would exhibit no further violence. It was a creature, no. A stone that held no animal instincts. It masqueraded as a human. The contradiction grated against his heart, his values, a phantom pain born of an unknown emotion. Fear. It wasn't just grating, it was like many needles slowly digging into his heart. This had to have been the first taste of doubt, of reality. Such contradictions existed in the world, after all. They were irrationalities and questions you did not want to hear the answers to. It hurts. The suppressed pain suddenly flowed through his body like a raging river. This was also a first. Until now, he had always been able to control pain. He had never known what it was like to tremble. An elemental might have been... An elemental might have even felt sorrow for him. If it were here to watch... How sad. Born complete yet lost in the lunacy of the human world. It hurts. It hurts so much. His heart had fully regenerated. Howling in mental agony, the beast clutched his own trembling body. Those eyes, those human eyes looking straight through him. And then the boy realized the only reason he was still alive, even with both arms broken, the human could have finished him off with its legs. But it mattered not, because his opponent was giving him a taste of his own medicine. Payback is a dish best served cold on a silver platter. Sojiro's not just here to win, he's here to make sure this wolf understands everything.
he just put Aoko and Alice through. It was not revenge for trying to kill him. It was revenge for the wounds he inflicted on the girls. The absurdity of it all made his throat tighten. His breathing was frantic. This human had no sense of self. It had no concern for its own safety when it stood between him and the girls. That must be why it had no hate or fear. Or perhaps even intent to kill him. Indeed, the fact that he was alive had nothing to do with the human's will. The fight was machine-like, so it was judgment. An eye for an eye, and nothing more. If the werewolf had killed one of the girls, this exchange would have ended differently. If I killed them, would I have been killed? He shuddered at the thought. He had never entertained such a possibility. He had never had to, because he was supposed to be the one exception to that rule. Agony kicked him hard in the gut. No matter the mystic, nothing was inhuman. Nothing was immune from injury, from decay. The boy finally understood the obvious law of the world, or rather, he had been taught. He would have killed me. I know it. Those eyes, they would have stopped staring down at him. Retribution was a universal law. He was now painfully aware of that fact. And yet, the one who brought form to this idea was the human. The pain of defeat, the pain of his heart, the pain of comprehending the incomprehensible. Pain. The impossibility of it all had shattered his perfect world. It ate at him, consumed every fiber of his being. The doubt made his head spin. It was too much. Humans were impossible to understand. I'd have been killed. He had not been made to face the death of another, but his own. Unable to cope, he reverted to his human form. Quietly, he shivered like a frightened child in a mother's lap. Still lying in the snow, Aoko choked on her words, unable to entirely comprehend what had unfolded. Sojiro, you... She could not hide the trembling in her voice. What? Speaking in his usual way, Sojiro nonchalantly turned towards her. What do you mean? What? Do you even know what you just did? She shouted angrily, as though he had done something wrong. Sojiro looked surprised, wondering what on earth he had done to upset her. He lowered his gaze back to the wolf boy. Knitting his brow in dismay, Sojiro finally realized what Aoko was referring to. That was weird, Aozaki. I thought you knew. He looked at her in disappointment. Knew what? Don't just act like this is normal! The fuck you mean? I thought you knew. It straight up said, oh, its fur can take any fucking hit. And you out here just stopping his heart. New? What? What are you talking about? Feeling slightly affronted, Aoko responded curtly. Sojiro sighed. Bears are actually pretty common in the mountains. Don't just casually say shit like that! Remember me telling you that? Huh? Aoko's jaw dropped. It took her a moment to process what he had just said. I need more than a moment. You don't just casually just go and say, remember, bears are common, so I'm over here just punching bears. Just pew, 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 pew. That thing's a 300-pound piece of fuck you. I grew up in the mountains. Those things are a big-ass thing of fuck you. They make moose go, hi, let's have an actual chance. She recalled some meaningless conversation or other from who knows when. Are you making fun of me? Good grief, why did they train me to fight bears of all things? Yes, now she thought about it, they had spoken about that. He'd mentioned being familiar with large beasts. And she couldn't deny that she heard him utter some anachronistic nonsense about training against them. Who the fuck casually trains up against bears? I'm sorry. We look at bears and go, alright, time to get my gun. Time to get my freedom stick out because fuck that thing. I'm not having it rip the door hinges off my car, my house, my dumpster, everything I own just to get food. Those things look at cars and go, yeet! And you're out here going, I'm trading against them. What? Which meant you had not been paying attention, because I don't remember this conversation at all. And this dude is inhuman. He was used to dealing with animals larger than himself. If he lived in the sort of life that involved run-ins with wild bears, then a man-wolf might only have been surprising, but not particularly frightening. You deal with bears by getting your pow-pow stick out. You load it up, you take it out, you point at the thing and go, bang. A few times, too. Aim for that heart. Not wham, right with your elbow in its side after punching it straight in the chest. You do that, you are dead. Because that thing's going to rip you in half and turn you into dinner. Aoko hung her head. After all this time, who was it that really made no sense? Okay. You win this one, Sojiro. It was hard to tell whether she spoke in admiration or exasperation. Either way, as she slouched in the snow, Aoko spoke quietly enough, so only she could hear her words. Toko, on the other hand, understood exactly what had transpired. Bayo lay fallen, now just a sobbing boy. And another boy stood over him with 2 shattered arms. And the dude's still gonna come over there and kick your ass! Nearly fatally wounded, Aoko and Alice still could not stand, but had recovered enough to breathe. As for Toko, she had only a few tricks up her sleeve.
maybe 3 or 4 more runes at best. The magic crests on her back were unusable. She could use the remaining magical energy from the field imprisoning her grandfather, but that would be stupid! If she released her grandfather, she would lose ownership of the sacred ground. Failing to defeat Aoko and Alice now would mean starting over from square one, and she could not afford that. The sibling rivalry had to end. Toko had gambled everything on her surprise attack. Using the fact she was still in Aozaki to infiltrate Misaki's defenses, for 3 years she had labored selling her work to the association, and she had used 20 years' worth of hair to mobilize an army of familiars. It was now or never. But I failed. She had overestimated the werewolf's power. No! You didn't! That thing had everyone by the ropes! It should have been enough. Against mages alone, Beowulf by himself would have been enough to ensure complete victory. Against a normal human, you should have had a complete victory. But things did not always go to plan. Beowulf's incredible strength was conditional. She knew he was not infallible, so why hadn't she prepared a contingency plan? Her heart as cold as ice, Toko stared at Sojiro, who stood tall. His arms were a hideous mess. His arm used to strike Beo head-on barely even resembled an arm. His bones were bent out of shape, his muscles were torn to shreds. To say his arm was simply broken would be a gross understatement. Streams of crimson ran down his other arm onto the white snow. The elbow he drove into Beo's back was likely shattered, and his muscle and tendons tore up to his shoulder. Judging from the state of his arms, it was doubtful he would be able to use them again. Worse than his arms were his left leg, and no doubt his internal organs too. He had used the leg to take the full brunt of Beo's charge. At a glance, it looked fine, but it was now just as useless hunk of meat attached to his torso. His insides were worse, supporting the weight of Beo had ruptured his spine, causing widespread internal bleeding. Basically, he was a dead man standing. Supported by the fuck you! This man is running entirely on fuck you and spite! A bird with clipped wings. Living like that would not be living at all. He could barely stand, let alone fight again. In contrast, the collapsed werewolf was unscathed. Only once had he coughed up blood. The majority of the pool was red on the snow was Sojiro's, a crimson tapestry telling a story of the boy who stood strong and defeated a werewolf. A reaction has an equal and opposite reaction. You strike and you face the consequences, especially if you hit a werewolf. It would be like punching a moving freight train. Did he? Perhaps he had known what would happen. Animals instinctively limit their strength in order to protect their body. Compensating for physical weakness with intellect and technique was humanity's forte, and that clash had shown humans at their very best. And yet it had also been beyond human. He had attacked without concern for his own safety. That is just a Tuesday with him at this point. He gave 0 fucks for his own safety half the time during the story. Without self-preservation in mind, he could go beyond human capability. So basically this bitch be out here just breaking human capability on a Tuesday. Because he either has no concern for his own well-being or has no idea what's going on, if not both. Enough to strike through the steel-like fur of a legendary werewolf, but who would have thought that a beast was able to withstand a shot from a tank would be felled by a mere human? No, that's not right. The boy did not break, he struck without hesitation. He struck knowing he was going to break. He sacrificed his entire body to destroy Beo's heart. Toko felt a chill come over her as she went over in her head what had transpired. It should have been a nightmarish scene, but she was captivated by that supreme display of physical rationality. From the outside looking in, she had witnessed not an accident, but a rational consequence. In that instant, the boy had put his entire being into piercing Beo's chest. As soon as he laid eyes on Aoko and Alice, he had committed himself fully to the task. He sized Beo up, synchronized his breathing, found his weak point, and calculated the exact position, timing, and distance he would need to hold his ground. He knew what he had to do to win, and it did it with everything he had. It had nothing to do with instinct. A wild creature would not have tried to beat something it could not. Only a human would risk his life when faced with the impossible. That contradiction fed his attack. He twisted his body from his heel to his neck to focus his energy. If Beo had simply tried to run Sojiro down, their werewolf would probably have won. But the beast wanted to rip him to shreds. Or rather, he was baited into doing so. After Beo charged when he planted his feet, he raised his claw, then swung it downward, putting himself off balance. His pulse was erratic, his movement wild in that moment. He was vulnerable. That was when Sojiro made his move. The beast had overwhelming power, but it was sloppy. Whereas the human concentrated all of his meager power into a single point. That was how the human shifted the balance in his favor. The follow-up elbow attack would rupture Beo's heart. It was a graceless second strike, a sloppy blow no different from Beo's. The elbow was only able to penetrate the beast's golden fur because of the first attack to his chest.
It left Beo wide open. Took away his invincibility for a split second. Basically.
The strike was not meant to break, but to disable. All living creatures had weaknesses. No matter how strong the creature, it had weak points and weak moments. Not just physically, but mentally too. A time when they aren't in their best shape, unable to focus or find motivation. Sickness or a lack of sleep or food, for example, can cause the body's rhythm to go out of sync. For a variety of reasons, intelligent beings risked losing their ability to function properly. Legendary beasts were no exception.
Weakness. I know some magecraft that targets weakness, but I've never heard of a technique that risks everything to create a weakness.
The boy's strike to the heart was not an attempt to kill Beo. It was designed to create a weakness in something that had none. The elbow attack took advantage of that break in Beo's invulnerability.
Laughable. It wasn't even a surprise attack. With Beo's reflexes, he should have been able to react. But he didn't even realize he was being attacked. How do you teach that even something non-threatening can be a threat?
She was frustrated to say the least. The boy was totally committed, utterly selfless. He bet his life on that single moment without expecting a single thing in return. The boy had acquired the experience and skill to do such a thing. It was not a miracle of luck, nor a miracle of passion. It was not a talent, tenacity, or hatred. Without constant, intense training, no one could destroy their own body on a whim like that.
He made a poor opponent for a child.
Seeing Beo cowering in the snow, Toko was disappointed in her own lack of foresight. She had used him for his talent alone, ignoring his inexperience. If Beo was not a child, his life experience might have given him the strength to bounce back and devour Sojiro after regenerating.
Should I scold you, Beo? Or praise you?
Toko quietly lifted her left hand. Nobody noticed. Standing far away, the boy standing there looked like a hunter from a picture book. He had a slender build, but that was likely because he intentionally shed any excess. Given what she just witnessed, his cluelessness had to be part of an act, the act of a hunter. As she thought to herself, she suddenly remembered. The first thing that crossed her mind, the first time they spoke.
I remember now. And how I wanted to forget dear Sojiro.
No sooner had she felt a slither of sentiment, she returned to her unshakable resolve. She was raised as the heir to the Aozaki household, taught never to question the morality of her actions. That was why, even now, she knew exactly what she had to do.
I'm glad that went well,
Sojiro muttered, unmoving perhaps because of the pain in his broken arms. He did not look at Aozaki. Instead, his gaze was focused on Alice, who was lying prone some way away. Aoko thought he looked lonely.
That did well. What did?
She asked, spurring him on. They were mere steps from each other, close enough to touch hands, but neither can move their arms. Their quiet voices carried in the stillness.
Don't you dare say you're happy we're alive, or I'll be so pissed.
She was not joking. Sojiro turned away from her slightly, shaking his head.
I'll say it a third time, but I'm not worried about your safety, Aozaki. You know,
I could swear I blacked out back there for
just a moment,
he said as an embarrassed smile crossed his face. The first time he outright fainted, but the second time his passion pushed the dizziness and nausea aside. He just calmly did what he could as best he could. Nevertheless, no matter how calm he tried to be, deep within festered a very real rage.
Okay, Sojiro, what is it you think went so well?
Aoko's voice had a slight tinge of annoyance. Sojiro responded,
Because I was finally able to keep my promise.
You held up your end of the deal, but I hadn't delivered yet. That always bothered me. I'm so glad I got the chance to set things straight. His relief expressed itself as a small but heartfelt smile. Because he never kept up his end of the bargain with the fucking doll. Doll was like, Bye, Felicia! I'm gonna go downstairs and go fuck with the girl who looks like me. Da-di-da-di-da-di-da. Aoko listened, astonished. For a moment, she could not recall what promise Sojiro was talking about. When she remembered what he was talking about, what she had told him all that time ago in the amusement park, her mind went blank.
If I agree to help you kill that thing, will you let me go?
He proposed the deal, but in the end he hadn't been of any use. Dude was as useful as a sack of butter. It must have been eating away at him this entire time. Aoko had considered the agreement binding, but only for herself.
You were worried about that?
She muttered in disbelief. Sojiro gave a nod, affirmed with a tiny voice. You're the one who taught me that promises are things you make to yourself, Aozaki. So as long as you keep your word, I need to keep mine.
Phew, what a weight off my shoulders.
As if listening to a confessional, Aoko stayed silent. She could not find the words to say anyway. Sojiro proved ever the enigma, taking such a trivial promise so seriously and speaking so sincerely about something so basic. She could not wrap her head around how he had beaten a werewolf, but his personality, that was the true mystery. It was of no use trying to figure out. Now, to Aozaki, he was a riddle wrapped in an enigma wrapped in a conundrum.
So, I've paid my dues.
We're even, Aozaki, Sojiro said lightly, perhaps attempting to break the silence. Normally this would have passed her by, but she saw his kindness for what it was. It's me who owes you one now. I don't even know how to begin to pay you back. Sojiro nodded in happy agreement. How about you don't wipe his memory and y'all do just be friends? You both like each other as people. Jesus Christ. This girl, I love her, but she drives me up the walls. Why does she remind me of someone? Two people now, actually.
Anyway, your leg looks a lot better. Can you stand?
She shot him a stubborn look as to say, well, duh, obviously. Ever amazed by her grit, he offered her his right hand. His only hand at this point, thank you very much. What is currently shattered into 10 trillion pieces? Could you regenerate his arm for him, please? Despite being broken at the elbow, to Aoko, it looked as sturdy as ever. By all appearances, it was beyond recovery, and would be for the rest of his life. So you can't regenerate his arm for him. Got it. Even so, he seemed able to ignore the pain for Aoko's sake. You really are hopeless, she uttered under his breath, looking up at him. As much as she hated to admit, she could not refuse his hand. Resigning herself, she reached out to Sojiro. But her hand never reached his. A small bell chimed. A line of wind whipped through the air. It cut through the waist like a guillotine. No. Pieces began to fall. What were those things dropping before her eyes? Aoko could not remember who they belonged to. Oh. She didn't. No way. So, Juno? That used to be his name, right? The name of whoever lay in the red snow in front of her. His face now rested on the ground beneath her chin. The smell of viscera assaulted her nostrils. A river of blood flowed from what used to be his stomach. It happened so fast. Too fast for her mind to process the fact. Her only solace was he probably did not suffer. How could she think so calmly, especially after what she had witnessed? Her blood boiled at her own stupidity. Which begged the question. How should she treat the one who did this? With extreme prejudice! Absolute prejudice. No end. She had used all her anger on herself. She had none left to give anyone else, but this hatred was hers, and hers alone. Her problem was this. Could she muster the emotion from this drought of anger? She was not sure, but the thought of hunting them down made her smile unconsciously in anticipation. Aoko turned to the old school building to where Toko was standing with her arm out in front of her. She had used the same rune magecraft she used against Aoko and Alice, except Sojiro had no magic crests. Toko's amber eyes were narrowed, staring intensely at the fallen corpse. As to what she might have been feeling, Aoko could not care less. Even if Toko felt regret, Aoko would never forgive her as long as she drew breath. I should have killed you when I had the chance. Toko was not speaking to Aoko, but to the dead body. There was no response, no clouds of breath. Coming to terms that he was truly dead, Aoko pushed herself up to her feet.
That was surprisingly gruesome of you.
Facing her sister in the distance, Aoko spoke hoarsely.
But you made the right choice. Now, we can finish this.
She turned away from Sojiro and stared at Aoko. They stood far, far apart. Farther apart than their positions made them seem. Though there was nothing left to say, the two of them exchanged words in respect of the fact that they were once sisters.
Right. You've seen my aces up my sleeve, my magic crests, and the werewolf you've trumped. I've used all my crests up, and your trump card's been torn to pieces. Stalemate. Looks that way. I suppose I was naive, too. I should have known you wouldn't accept defeat after your werewolf failed. If you weren't so stubborn, you'd have never come back to Misaki. I really was naive.
It was clear to Toko that Aoko was trying to suppress her emotion. Aoko was right, though. Her sister had counted on Beowulf to succeed. As mages, no matter what cards Aoko or Alice had in their hands, they were helpless against the werewolf. But then Sojiro had to show up, and Toko couldn't win as long as he was around. Unfortunately, though, he had stopped the werewolf. He had been defenseless against the mage. So, she had to kill him. With Sojiro out of the way, no one could hold Beyo back. It would take time for him to recover, but as long as his wounds were only mental, that could be overcome. Alice and Aoko tried to attack again before he recovered, but Alice was being kept in check by the poison, so Toko still had the advantage. Stalemate still. The battle would drag on, unless Aoko were to use it. Do it! You go, girl! Let it out. Let everything out. Powdery snow began to whirl around. The air around her wailed. It was the magecraft that transcended all that was mystical. The gate to miracles beyond human comprehension, ready to show itself.
You always did love to fight, Aoko.
Toko released the crest maintaining the fields. With that, her grandfather would be freed, and the barriers around Misaki would be restored. Which was not what Toko wanted, but it was that or forfeit her life. The crests at her disposal were now twice as powerful as her sisters. Aoko gazed at this new threat with her eyes half closed. None of this was of her concern. Far removed from the situation, she was searching for something hidden deeper inside herself, desperate to reach it. There it was. An odd feeling, like picking up algae. It was not the fire of emotion. It was not solid nor great. It must have been people meant by rising to the occasion. Abandoning thought itself, Aoko held on to that feeling she had stared at her enemy.
All right, Toko.
She spoke softly, yet more loudly than a scream.
You want true magic? You've got it.
Focusing her power into the dim crests on her right arm, she weaved the words together. A single incantation, a final, heartfelt farewell. A brilliant blue-colored magic taking time back to when a certain someone had been blessed. To put it simply, magecraft is human wisdom. It is the world as we know it. Magic is the singularity that exists beyond either of those. At the beginning, the first changed all. Next, the second recognized many. In answer, the third showed the future. Tethered, the fourth concealed itself. And then the final fifth had long since lost its significance. Someone once said, had it only ended at the third? Magecraft is the study of history, feats of our making, and life orbiting the planet. But true magic is the providence of a god beyond the heavens. Why do those who stand on the earth extol the virtues of miracles beyond humankind and the planet? That was an undeniable sin. Magic was the enemy of humanity. That is why those who obtain new magic are killed by the Red Shadow.
Hear me, prime species of all creation.
Anko's voice resonated through the high above winter skies. The air began to fracture, turning the scenery into broken glass. Toko wondered whether she should fight or flee. She decided to try and keep her feelings in check and see this through. But the object of her obsession for so many years was right in front of her. Rationality was slipping from her grasp. Both of their fates were now uncertain. Toko had an overwhelming advantage when it came to her crests and the terrain. When it came to true magic, however, if the Aozaki magic was anything like Alice Konji's fairy tale monsters, then mage strength was not a part of the equation. At this point, it was Toko against magic itself, and there was no winning against truth. The transcendence and idiosyncrasies of true magic rendered things like magecraft irrelevant.
But can you?
Toko stared at her sister, wondering if she could actually use it. Her proclamation lacked conviction. She had raised her voice, but that was out of discipline. It had not been the arrogant conviction to sacrifice someone else for her own gain. Having not been chosen to inherit it, Toko could not imagine what the magic in her sister was. Only that it was a force violent enough to change the world. No human mind could withstand the audacity required to make an enemy of the world itself. Especially not someone as indecisive as her sister. The power of magic would surely cripple her.
Well,
feeling Toko's eyes on her, Aoko doubted herself. She could not help but hesitate. Terror gripped her heart tighter.
I have to.
She could not run away forever. Her hesitation and terror meant she would never forgive herself for stopping now. Closing her eyes, she pushed herself to the final stage. Time stopped, like a light being switched off. She submerged herself in her own darkness. Everything froze. Only she moved. Everything around her disappeared as she passed a limitless stream of stars. As soon as she did, she wanted to disappear into the empty thoughtlessness place she arrived in without any answers. Not again. The Red Shadow will surely come this time. Suddenly, I saw a new memory, possibly because I used another to make a trade for blank. I heard a familiar yet new sound.
I wish for nothing. I seek nothing.
Only to fuse with a consciousness that hurtles backward in time to zero. This sound, the bitter, sad, meaningless, pulls me back to by my hair. But I have to resist. The red ghost was always going to be my biggest hurdle. I must forget the value of life. I must forget the dignity of death. The sound persists. It's got nothing to do with this journey. It's just an external distraction. And yet, I think I finally understand. I know what noise has been making me so uneasy.
What the?
And the unsettling whispers were directed at me. Or perhaps the Red Shadow was perplexed by the quiet soul listening to it. It glares at me, its eyes full of hatred. How could I be so unprepared? Don't tell me. You can't be serious. You're going to turn me into your prey for that.
That is your everything. You have nothing else.
The effect of rewinding, the decision to never say never. His prime, his meaningless life, she negated it. She used her superior power to negate that sound, which was an absolute rule to him. Just brushed it aside, like it was a cobweb. The sound disappeared. A new one replaced it. I wish for nothing. I want nothing. A pure, obedient heart. That's why you get nothing. A life of falsehood, led by affirmation. This is ridiculous. My legs moved toward the future, but they stopped. Change of plans. I'm taking a different path. Nothing's changed. It's just something has made me really mad. How can I put it? You call this the past, you idiot. If I don't complain about something to someone, I'll explode. Even if it's just the voice, or to he who hears it, or to the part of me who just stays quiet and watches, or to the one who did that to him. With no answer, I open my eyes. I declare, Alco relaced everything she had dragged up. As for what was there, or what she saw, she could not remember. All she held on to was the fury that burned in her heart, pushed on by something she did not know what. She opened the door to magic. The change was extraordinary. Beneath her, the snow vanished, replaced by a small patch of lush, green grass. This ground had never existed under the frozen blanket. It had been rewritten into a new landscape. The elements rejected her as the world itself was fighting back. Go, girl! Do it! Kick your sister's ass. The electrical discharge lashed at her body. The miracles threatened to destroy the world. The world had to protect itself. It moved to expunge her. Pain scorched her every cell, trying to tear away her consciousness. But she did not falter. All this pain and this loneliness was to take her to the root. Ever since inheriting true magic, she had suffered this torture time and time again. She contended against the voiceless protests of the cosmos. The burden engulfed her retinas, nerves in flame, and then light. She finally understood. She remembers why she came back, and what she wanted to scream. By the name Blue, I speak for order. Hear me! A censuring voice told her to stop. At the edges of oblivion, her hand touched the true form of magic. The snarling red shadow was there, telling her it was of no use. So much doubt, so much fear, but such things mean nothing to her. To me. I don't care about the magician's obligations or the destruction of mankind. I'm sick and tired of hearing about it. I only have one reason of doing anything right now. God, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. I just want to save him. All is not sane, yet all shall be right. A blue whirlwind whisked up around her. Casting aside her doubt and sorrow, the magician played her trick upon the world. Time flowed backward. It's fucking spring! Oh no, we're straight up like rewinding time. Oh, we're going back weeks, days, months. Childhood memories were overwritten. white flowers appeared as far as the eye could see. Brighter than snow, they rippled like a wave across the world, devouring it.
Woo! 5 timeless words. Order has fallen to ruin.
What was declared had come to be. In this time and place alone, the fifth magic made itself known. In the blink of an eye, the snowy clearing had transformed. A sea of fully bloomed white flowers blanketed the ground. Only the dilapidated school building and the bare winter trees signified this was the original world. The once cold wind now blew with a pleasant warmth across the landscape. Even the night sky was once again teeming with stars. If one reached out, one could almost touch them. It was a mix of comfort and solitude, quiet enough to carry the sound of insects flying through the air, a scene far removed from the impurity and grief of humans. A world with nothing, yet one that needed nothing. It was his most precious memory. The winter tundra had changed into a sparkling meadow. Aoko's so-called true magic confused Toko. Sure, it was pleasing to the eye, but she wanted to see something less idyllic. Aoko's spell was clearly no small feat, but the surrounding mana had not changed. Better to be confused, though, than dealing with something like Alice Koonji's flat snark. The only change seemed to be the flower field and Aoko's appearance. And she got dialed up! Just took that dial, cranked it to 20 and went, go! She seemed to have received some enhancement to her physical form, but it would never be enough to match Toko. Bullshit, that girl's going to rip you into a new one!
Okay, so I know this is magic.
Toko said with a hint of annoyance.
But I'll be honest, this is a letdown. There has to be more. Surely, this can't be it.
Aoko began walking through the sea of flowers, but she was not heading towards Toko.
This is it. For me.
And for you. Aoko's words sent a wave of unease through Toko. Her sister's voice seemed different somehow. It was mostly the same in pitch, so it had to be the tone. No, that was the same too. Something was off. Could it be? It was then Toko noticed something else that had changed. Not just Aoko in the clearing. The severed body lying at Aoko's feet. It was now whole. Corpse reanimation. Wound healing. It did not look like Aoko was using a significant formula. And besides, regenerating a body did not bring it back to life. Since the dawn of time, even true magic had never been able to bring back the dead. But the body of the boy behind Aoko was moving. It was breathing like it was taking a nap.
Can Aozaki resurrect the dead? No way. This isn't resurrection. It's...
Before she could think of an answer, Toko realized what had seemed out of place to her before. Aoko's mannerisms appeared beyond years. Her appearance had changed ever so slightly, but beyond there had been a change from within. By the time Toko arrived at that seemingly impossible conclusion, Aoko had closed the distance between them.
Circuit. Connected.
Aoko raised her left hand to eye level. Toko could see no hear the magical energy generating inside Aoko. It was sound Toko had never heard before. Aoko only possessed single function, low-grade circuits, no better than any other third-rate mage, so she generated magical energy at a much lower rate than Toko. However, the speed was absurdly quick, moving even faster than the blood pumping through her body. Magecraft could vibrate, but how in the hell were their activated magic circuits audible? Even the association had never heard such a thing.
Onward to victory!
Spurred to action by the sudden dread, she felt Toko hurriedly carved runes into the air. Toko summoned the divine protection victory tier to surround herself with a barrier, which was further enhanced by her crests. Paying it no mind, Aoko held her arm steady, not moving it up to strike her target directly. Bullets deploy.
Bullets! Bullets! Deploy.
Aoko commanded herself succulently. Do it! This was beyond magecraft. It was just a few words. She had fired 20 magical bullets. Like a meteor shower, the bullets smashed through the rocket-proof room barrier, as well as Toko's spell-woven coat. Rip her a new one.
You shot them without loading.
The protective runes lining her coat screamed. They would not be able to take another barrage like that, and she had already taken internal injuries. She loathed to admit it, but Aoko vastly outclassed Toko in terms of raw power. Even harder to admit was that her sister probably had not even brought out the big guns yet.
Ansus! Sowilo! Ingwas!
Jumping backward, Toko drew more runic symbols in the air. In response, her crest burned brightly. But
too slow.
with a single word, Aoko nullified the runes, dissolving them before they could be given meaning. The power of Aoko's words had surpassed the magical energy of Toko's rune magecraft. With the runes nullified, Aoko continued advancing through the white flowers. From her calmness to the robust spinning of her magic circuits and her breathing, she was different. A woman with sublime self-control, a trait only found in mages with a lifetime of combat experience.
You traveled in time.
Given the evidence, that was the only explanation for Aozaki's magic. Aoko's magic circuits had not been amplified. That would have been impossible anyway. Like Toko, she would have to externalize them, which would just increase the scope of her magical energy and techniques. By nature, the quality of a mage's magic circuits did not change, but Aoko was now clearly a superior mage to Toko, so there was only one logical conclusion. In an instant, she had grown from an amateur to a veteran. She fast-forwarded her own time. The scarred red mage turned her back to her sister and ran. She knew she could not win, so she fled towards the old school building. Aoko did not fire. Not out of pity, but because she deduced that an attack at this range was risky. She went to chase after her sister, but stopped suddenly. A few words caught her in her throat. She took a small breath.
Watch him, Alice.
She said, slightly embarrassed by the maturity of her voice. White petals flitted through the air. Without looking back, she made after Toko, her long hair flowing behind her.
Huh?
His eyelids snapped open. At last, Sojiro awoke from his long slumber. Lying on his back, he gazed up at the stars. The trees around him created a porthole into space. Despite seeing all of this for the first time, he felt an uncomfortable sense of déjà vu. So many questions. What happened before he fell asleep? Why had he been sleeping? Everything was just so hazy. It was like he had walked out the door one minute and woken up in bed the next. With so many thoughts clouding his mind, he could barely recall his own name. All he could remember was a girl he'd never seen before, and something thin around his neck.
Shizuki.
The voice, quiet but clear, belonged to the girl named Alice Kuonji, who was at his side.
Oh yeah.
He sat up, mumbling incoherently. The black-clad girl knelt next to him.
Flowers?
He said, paying no mind to Alice. underneath the blue moonlight, spring flowers swayed surrounded by dead trees and snow. Against the curtain of night, white petals danced in the breeze like butterflies. Staring long and hard at the spectacle, Sojiro suddenly raised his fingers to his neck. He moved carefully like he was touching a wound. Then gradually he began squeezing. Harder. Harder.
Shizuki.
The voice of a girl beside him brought him back to reality.
Leaving so soon? You just came back.
She sounded both sad and reproachful, but Sojiro did not understand why. Seeing the uncharacteristic concern in her eyes, she snapped him to his senses.
Leaving? Where would I go?
His finger fell away from his neck. Without answering, she blankly looked to the sky, though there was only the infinite darkness of space. Well, whatever.
What am I doing again?
His head feels strange, like it's full of cobwebs. Sojiro tilted his head in confusion. Alice observed him motionlessly. This bewildered boy was a far cry from the one that had made short work of a werewolf. Then again, this was Sojiro. As she stared at him, she realized she did not have an answer he could understand. So she tried asking a question, the same question she asked him repeatedly as he slept, but eventually gave up expecting a response to.
Tell me,
do you remember what you were doing, Shizuki? Her quiet question had spoken like an enthralling spell of magecraft. Said spell seemed to work, and Sojiro sank into a sea of memories. Atop the bright white hill, they quietly sat for a while like siblings. I remember hearing someone's voice. I think they were asking me something, but I couldn't respond at all. Though consumed by the darkness of death, he could still vaguely recall the girl's question. He was not aware that he had died, but it seemed a fragrance of time remained from when he had been with her. Sojiro's expression darkened, filled with regret. Looking at his profile, Alice pressed him further.
And did you find what you were looking for?
Remembering that someone had asked him questions, he gave a slight nod.
Yeah, I did. But honestly, I didn't think I would, Alice. This whole time, I didn't think I would.
The regret in his voice was accompanied by a hint of strength. Lowering his gaze, Sojiro saw a white flower garden that looked like something from the afterlife. It shone brightly, captivating him. I remember now. I think I got cut in half in front of Aoko. But then, why am I alive? Sojiro said, prodding his body curiously. His arms were their old selves again, but what of Aoko? He turning towards Alice for an answer, who was sat among the flowers looking sullen. You were rewound, Shizuki. This place is from your memories, don't you remember? Alice seemed to be speaking in riddles. My memories? That's weird. I'm drawing a blank. Right now, your time is being used by Aoko. Until that time is returned, you won't be able to remember. She answered ominously as she cast her gaze over the flower garden. A shame all this won't stay. Once your time is returned, I'll be the only one who remembers. Looking at the white blossoms, she smiled momentarily. Her words only confused him further. You're not going to tell me, are you, Alice? He said dejectedly, prompting Alice to face him. What emotions lay inside those deep eyes? It's pointless having me tell you. But what do you want to hear anyway? Yeah. If it's not too bothersome, Alice. Sojiro nodded enthusiastically while Alice took a deep breath and closed her eyes. When she spoke in a caring tone, as if she was as caring as a tone as she was capable of.
The long and short of it is, you died. And you came back to life. After you were killed by Toko, Aoko rewound the 5 minutes before you opened your eyes. Meanwhile, she used roughly 10 years of your time. Neither of you changed physically, so she must have borrowed time from you mentally. That's why right now, this beautiful scenery would only bring back memories for Aoko in possession of your time. And once the time exchange was over, neither Aoko nor Sojiro would remember what happened during these moments. When Aoko used someone else to channel her true magic, it did not affect her alone. If she had rewound time for only herself, the temporal inconsistencies would form part of her own experience. However, this was proper time travel. The inconsistencies would be corrected. When the magic ended, both Aoko's memories of this place and Sojiro's unfamiliarity with it would be corrected. This miracle would become unrealized. Only the observers would remember this brilliant white sea of flowers, Alice and Toko. She borrowed my time? Sojiro asked, his head tilting even farther at Alice's general explanation. She recalled how Aoko said that if you gave Sojiro a roundabout answer, he would stop asking questions, even if he did not comprehend it. There was no way to resurrect you, so instead Aoko attempted to circumvent your death completely. Perhaps because she was unable, or because she was hesitant, she avoided any large-scale manipulation and settled for a smaller exchange between the two of you. That means you effectively jumped through time by 5 minutes. Even if someone from the distant future was able to look through time, they couldn't find you in those 5 minutes because you don't exist in regular time anymore. Simultaneously, Aoko borrowed your time to advance her own. More than likely, time from your childhood. From what I understand, individual time manipulation is easier when using forgotten memories. Shizuki.
I don't know what song this is, but it is fucking gorgeous.
Should I slow down? Alice asked with her eyes. All Sojiro could do was nod. So, Aoko used 2 miracles. She rewound your body and fast-forwarded her own. When going into your time, she borrowed 10 years from yours to bring her future self closer. Therefore, the one trying to kill Toko right now is actually an Aoko Aozaki from 27 years of experience. What on earth was Alice talking about? Sojiro's expression gave away his thoughts, though the part about Toko made him furrow his brow. Aoko's going to kill Toko? If she hasn't already, yes. As soon as Alice answered, Sojiro sped off, kicking up white petals behind him as he ran. The brave boy who defeated a werewolf was back. Alice watched him go. On a snowy night, the same boy ran down Shido Inuzuka Hill for her too. Sojiro entered the old school building. Lights flashed, and the sounds of destruction exploded around him, threatening to turn the area into a burial ground. Still, he remained focused. See, Aoko? Sorry, but I knew this would happen. Her words only reached the white flowers around her. Aoko knew Sojiro too well, so she wanted Alice to stop him. If he tried to interfere in the battle against Toko, she could not protect him this time. But it was too late to celebrate Aoko's judgment now. The girl in black had no intention of going after him. She simply sat for a while, gazing forlornly at the transient flower garden.
Get her! Get her! Get her!
A storm of magic bullets struck down a hail of lightning blades. A mage's workshop was their home base and last line of defense. It featured an abundance of defensive spells designed to cut down brazen challengers and thieves. The old school building was no exception. Painstakingly rigged by the puppet master and rune mage Toko Aozaki, a reflection of her bizarre obsession, the workshop was set to indiscriminately destroy any intruders.
Stay still for one damn second, you freak!
Toko complained as she ran down the hallway, activating her traps along the way, but nothing seemed to work. None of the runes, regardless of their quality or quantity, could slow her sister down. Her reaction speed and ability to predict attacks could only be described as transcendent. Even magic bullets she fired from both her arms were too much, destroying the runes and the very walls that housed them.
Is this all your newfound maturity has gotten you? The ability to smash things like a child?
She is really good at breaking things, though. As she spat out her words, the ceiling opened, increasing the pressure from the runes. Invisible walls popped up in the hallway. Aoko stopped and swung her right leg upward.
Fuck yeah!
Straight toward the ceiling, her foot cut through the thick air like a knife through butter, shattering the ceiling and the runes along with it.
You're one to talk, always going overboard.
Don't you ever get fed up with creating runes? You're not trying to build a space fortress.
This building holds precious memories for people, so show some damn respect.
The wooden boards along the hallway that had withstood decades of wind and snow were now destroyed. Aoko charged forward. The chaos was inevitable. While Toko's runes were cursed living creatures, Aoko's magic bullets destroyed all without prejudice.
Huh? You don't have an elegant bone in your body. To think you're my sister.
Toko would do anything to change her blood, but there were more pressing matters at hand. The girl rushing her now was not the sister she remembered, but rather a more complete version of herself. Toko couldn't afford to let her guard down for a second. But this was supposed to be magic.
This is supposed to be magic? Don't make me laugh.
Localized time travel, Toko didn't believe that that was the true nature of the Aozaki magic. Aoko's transformation had to be a mere byproduct of true magic. She couldn't make heads or tails of its depths. Even with Aoko having achieved it, at the very least, it was so simple a miracle. After all, the concept of time travel was already possible through the second magic. Record manipulation, revision of possibilities, and so forth involved operation of parallel worlds. So there was no way she could be the fifth magic.
Which brings me to my next question, Aoko. Where the hell did you get those 10 years from? From the moron outside. Got a problem? I'm going to give him his time back. So don't you dare judge me.
That made sense. There was a bias, but the amount of time on the axis had not been changed. But
so what you're going to do with those 5 minutes? Finish me, then return him to his former state? Is that your plan?
Aoko stopped in her tracks. Aoko had took aim at Aoko's glaring oversight. Aozaki magic and Aoko's humanity were inconsistent.
Yeah, you can't revive someone by manipulating time. All you've done is console yourself for a moment.
The magic crest on Toko's back began to demonstrate their true worth. Drawing upon the magical energy stored in the crest, she materialized her largest trap yet in the hallway.
maybe you've committed an even greater sin.
3 rune stones appeared. Their scale and level of magical energy were wildly different from the other runes. Created by Toko herself at the Mages Association. They were replicas of one of the lost primordial runes created by a Nordic giant. The 3 thin crystalline lenses amplified her carved runes tens of millions of times. They rendered projectiles like magic bullets ineffective. Even if Aoko's magical output was far exceeded Toko's, these giant slabs were several times more powerful still. Aoko's signature magecraft could only release magical energy, so she had no way to defend or evade attack.
Boom! A fix. A fix? Subjective. Axis.
Pushing herself on, Aoko took a deep breath of resolve. Instead of defending or dodging, she went low and charged into the rune storm.
You don't even exist within this time axis, do you?
Infuriated by the realization, Toko set her magic crests to full power. Though repeated second-long bursts of time travel, Aoko was able to avoid the runes completely. She was either sending the attack's impact to a different time, or layering several thousand of herself atop one another. Whatever, no way she could keep up with that kind of magical energy output.
One down.
Aoko kicked the crystal slab to pieces. 2 remained, distance 30 feet. Toko had 10 seconds of magical energy left, but that was all she needed. Aoko, on the other hand, would stop now if she had any common sense as a mage. She couldn't continue breaking the rules for much longer. Then again, time travel itself was breaking the rules.
Aoko!
Once again, Aoko used the same technique. Toko's suspicion turned into a white-hot hatred. She couldn't care less about her time travel formula. It was the amount of magical energy she had. Where was she pulling the energy necessary to jump through time for so long?
Wait! I knew it.
It was the death of Sojiro Shizuki. If she had brought him back 5 minutes to when he was still alive, where would those 5 minutes go? Aoko's magic wasn't using parallel worlds to change this one. She had only rewound Sojiro's 5 minutes. Then, logically, he'd return to being a corpse as soon as the magic ended. Time travel that didn't change the world couldn't change the past. Therefore, if she wanted to save him, she had to either truly resurrect him, or send those 5 minutes of reality somewhere far away without returning them.
2 down. 2 down.
Aoko showed no sign of slowing. Far beyond her crystal barrier, Toko glared at Aoko with disdain.
Answer me, Aoko. What did you do with this time? How are you going to balance all that heat? How the hell should I know? I tossed this time somewhere into the distant future. What?
15 feet to go. Faced with such madness, Toko wanted to cover her eyes. She put the debt of the present into the distant future. A time paradox would have been more humane. Such an enormous haphazard consumption of heat could not be allowed. After all, time travel alone required a massive amount of energy. Magical energy was required to bring things from somewhere else. At the same time, losing something that exists here, it consumed an incredible amount of energy. And what about the magical energy used for cooling? If either fell out of equilibrium, it would mean total chaos. The distortion caused by her magic would come to affect this entire sector of space.
How? How in the hell can you be so dumb? You're going to pile that debt onto the dead end that humanity will reach, you're going to lay it at the feet of the heat death of the universe. Like hanging a world-ending meteor over the head of this planet. Or are you planning on crushing the Earth under your own weight? What?
The last comment made Aoko's eyes widen. Her every step exerted such force it broke the floorboards beneath her feet.
I'll worry about that later. Next time I'll put the dent in the past. That better? Then only the past will be crushed by distortion. That's your master plan? Save the present by destroying the past? That saves us, but what about the heat problem? The burden of the rest of the universe?
Exactly. Even if the universe were closed, or the present were still expanding, the absurd increase in heat consumption would become uncontrollable, which waits for the end of infinite expansion, infinite consumption, and the infinite growth is a future without hope. The nothingness before creation. Eventually the universe would burn up.
The Aozaki magic only makes that conclusion more certain, and that's on you. Don't you think I already know that? I'll figure it out. As long as I live, I'll figure something out.
5 feet to go. The room blasted, now carrying all of Toko's hatred, focused into a scorching hot laser beam. Her body being torn into the intense heat, and her emotion raging, Aoko drove her foot into the ground.
Oh, you'll take responsibility, will you? How exactly? I said I'd figure it out, didn't I? Starting now. You make me sick.
Toko's last defense was shattered. Close enough to connect, the two mages unleashed their magecraft. Red runes, blue ether. In a cascade of magic bullets, Toko Aozaki's crests were torn into pieces, and so was Toko herself. She dead? Is it over? It was just as Alice said. By the time Sochiro arrived, it was already over. The old-school building's wood and boards had survived the elements for decades, but they were not ready for a mage duel. The entrance door hung off its hinges. The floorboards groaned. The stairs were ready to collapse underfoot. Toko's escape and Aoko's pursuit had left a trail of destruction leading all the way to the second floor. The chaos continued to the end of the hallway by the stairs to the third floor. Toko sat in a heap with her back against the wall. Despite her injuries, she kept her eyes firmly on Aoko. You fucked her up! She was bleeding internally and had multiple broken bones. Multiple? At least every bone is broken in some way, shape, or form. That girl is in pieces. All the king's horses and all the king's men ain't putting that bitch back together again. She would not be moving anytime soon. Possibly damaged by Aoko's flying kick, her mystic eyes were ruptured from within, closing them indefinitely. Despite her battered and broken body, she was still breathing steadily, a testament to her stubbornness. Before she stood, Aoko staring down at her, uninjured.
Thought I could make it. To the roof.
Toko was not trying to be facetious. She sounded genuinely disappointed. Aoko responded with a cold glare. Her azure eyes had not changed one bit. They were callous as ever, yet undeniably beautiful. From where she stood, Aoko held her hand out toward Toko. Like a hunter about to put a wounded prey out of its misery. The victor was decided. The mage came to steal land and got a death sentence for her trouble. The silence was disquieting. The moonlight peered through the demolished ceiling, illuminating the two sisters with its stare. The utterly mad sibling squabble was over. Now, the fireworks were finished. The cold wind had returned to claim the old school building.
Any last words?
Aoko's voice cut through the silence. Toko thought for a moment, before lightly patting her coat pocket. Nothing. She frowned.
I thought I'd have one last smoke, but it looks like I burned through them all while waiting for you. They're bad for me anyway. Japanese cigarettes taste too good.
Aoko gave a small nod.
Not exactly the words I was expecting. Wait. Okay, fine. Tough crowd. I'll give you what you want. The meaningless final cry of a loser.
Toko's voice was laden with sarcasm, but not hostility or hatred. Perhaps her vendetta was not directed at Aoko herself, but rather a product of two sisters born into a mage family.
I never thought the Aozaki magic would be time travel. Some kinks obviously need ironing out, but that's not really for me to say. What would I know anyway? Just take it seriously and you'll be fine. The fact that you took 10 years to figure it out doesn't give me confidence, though. I expected more of Alice. Alice helped in her own way. She doesn't think I'll ever make a real mage, though. Can't say I disagree. That wolf would have made an interesting match. Him? No, he's useless now that he's tasted defeat. For you wield magic, perhaps, but he's lost himself now. Tell me something, Aoko. Your magic, is it cause, or is it effect?
Toko wanted to know if it came before or came after. Did Aoko need magic to get her where she needed to go, or did she obtain magic as a result of reaching that place?
Effect. I turned tail when I got to the door, so I never found out what that old man was thinking. Then it's the same process as the first magic, even more sinful. I heard the second through the fourth were created to reach that place. If opposites attract, I guess similars repulse. Better hope the first doesn't bite back. But when you reach the door, then, which tells me magic. But you reach the door then, tell me. Which tells me magic inheritance is similar to path inheritance. So, Ymir's entrance was here all along. That's game maybe a name. I call it the Gate of Akasha. And what you were after the whole time, correct?
Toko used every ounce of strength she could to find a nod.
And I was going to be mine, but I couldn't wait generations. That's where grandfather and I parted ways. From then on, I had better things to do than chase revenge. Well, it's over now. No use talking about it anymore. There's just one last thing to ask. What is it like touching the root?
Painful. Toko spoke after taking a deep breath. Her last words showed no trace of hatred. Aoko remained silent as she began raising her right hand up high. She recalled her grandfather's orders. The source of true magic, revealing one's knowledge or impression of the root, was strictly forbidden. But this was her sister's dying wish. Maybe it would be okay. The conversation would end the moment she brought her arm down. Then, this rotting shell of a building would become her sibling's tomb. What harm could it do? And it's not like she planned to follow her grandfather's rules anyway.
I have a confession to make.
Aoko's voice carried through the blue hallway.
To be honest, I don't remember anything.
She gave a blunt reply and brought her arm down like a bolt of lightning. Or at least she tried to. Her arm wouldn't listen to her. It wouldn't budge. What are you doing? Cursing Alice, Aoko spat her question out with venom. Sojiro materialized from behind her, taking hold of her raised arm. Though unable to express it, Toko was shocked to see him too. Let go! Without looking at him, or even at her restrained hand, Aoko spoke sternly, her eyes forward. Come to think of it, at the amusement park, he appeared out of nowhere to protect her from that puppet. Are you deaf? I won't say it again. She was not bluffing. If he interfered, he would be given no mercy. I've decided to let you live. It would go against that promise, but he should know better. Even so, he maintained his grip on her arm. Do as you are. As Aoko turned around, the word told caught in her throat. She immediately regretted looking at him. She saw herself in his expression. Mournful, sadness, judgmental, anger. His conflicting emotions spoke to her of her own internal struggle. Voicelessly, quietly, without volition. Rustic gray eyes questioning a deep sin. If you have something to say, then spit it out. Otherwise, get out of my face. Sojiro gently released Aoko's arm as she maintained her resolve. They locked eyes, neither friend nor foe. Their bitterness clashed without words. And then suddenly, murder is wrong. Sojiro stated in the matter-of-fact way with which Aoko had become all too familiar. Her words were empty, trite, even, and yet, given her current state, they reached her. Although she would soon forget the fragments of Sojiro's memories, they made her painfully aware of how he felt. Still, she could not agree with him. It would come back to bite her if she let Toko go now. Her sister would come for her again. She had already made 2 attempts on her life. Aoko did not have it in her to forgive her sister for what she had done. Above all, just as Toko said, if Aoko did not change, she would be a novice forever. She had not even won her first mage battle yet, and she knew putting down a blood relative would require even more conviction. Nevertheless, her words echoed over and over in her heart. Murder is wrong. Such a childish phrase, but the earnestness with which he said it, it was enough to make her sick. Resisting, Aoko glowered at Sojiro. So, what? She just killed you, and you're going to protect her? You're going to let her go so she can come back and kill you again once she's recovered? No, I don't have it in me to be a saint. But he would probably still let her go. He did not think that Toko would change. He also did not care to rationalize her actions based on her life. He was simply thankful that this person before him was still alive. You seem pretty damn saintly to me. That was what had made Aoko so angry. His overwhelmingly innocence and self-righteousness enraged her. Like the Hall of Mirrors was happening all over again. The only difference was now she knew why he was acting like this. It was because she had taken a part of him. He took a step forward, passing by her, saying words he knew he should not. If it's revenge we're talking about, it seems logical that the guy who was murdered should be the one to do it. I know I can't stop you, so I may as well do it, Aozaki. If it was difficult to discern who was the more pathetic in all of this, Toko, who had been staring at them this whole time, closed her other eye as if drifting off to sleep. I'm sorry, Miss Toko. Knowing her fate, Toko dropped her head as best she could as he walked towards her.
You know, it's better if you're the one to do it. Things are crazy right now. I can't imagine how much regret you'll feel after this all calms down.
But you'll be out.
But you'll be out of purgatory. You can shake off your old self, and move on. The only thing I regret is, it wasn't me who made you like this.
But she knew that Sojiro could not understand. Her words hanging in the air, she closed her lips tightly, and then weakly stuck out her slender neck. Sojiro took another step forward. Oh, I really thought he was going to do it. Before he could do anything, Aoko moved. Spinning in front of Sojiro, she cut off her magical energy and swung her hand as hard as she could. The sound of her slapping his face echoed through the hall along with his staggering steps.
Zaki?
An expression of determination.
You coward.
Tears of anger welling in her eyes, Aoko turned her back to Sojiro, sulking as though she would kill him as soon as she looked at him again.
That's what you get for taking another person's memories. He must have gotten inside your head, Aoko. Yeah, I had no idea. It sucks so much to have your own will influenced by someone else's.
That was about all Aoko could mutter in response. The corners of Toko's lips curled into a grin.
What's so funny? Nothing. It's just, I didn't think you were capable of normal human compassion.
Ugh, doing her voice is hard on my voice.
Being scared of taking other people's burdens for 10 whole years. You're not stupid. You're adorable. Now listen here. Don't glare at me like that. I meant what I said. So what's gonna happen to me? Are you gonna let me kill me? Or let me go? It's not like I have a choice. Like you said, this is my reward.
Aoko said begrudgingly, shooting Sojiro a sideways glance. He seemed to have recovered from the slap, and his usual absent-minded look had returned. He may have had no memories of his past, but his morals and values were too deep to be erased. Sojiro was trying to violate those. It would eat away at him forever, and he would be doing it not for himself, but for Aoko. Aoko understood this all too well now. The moment he said he would do it was the moment he lost. Not stopping him would be no different than watching him die. And she would lose something important inside her. Aoko did not want that to happen. Azaki, don't tell me you're one of those people who has to enact revenge on their own terms. Aoko ignored Sojiro, who seemed to have gotten the wrong idea. Instead, she directed her scowl at Toko, who still lay collapsed in front of her.
Fine, I'll let you live this time, Toko. But don't think you can just come and go as you please.
Toko scowled at her little sister, standing smugly over her.
If you're planning on handing me over to grandfather, you might as well kill me now. Right? I don't want to see him either. You're going to leave this place, though. I won't get in your way or send word to the association. I'll be reporting what happened to Ritsuka myself. This will be our secret.
Toko's brow ceased further. There had to be a catch.
Aoko? What are you scheming? Nothing. Just thinking about which spell to use on you. But I won't use Gander. No, you've tasted that one enough already. Yes, the curse I have in mind is a little stronger. If you ever show your face around here again, I'll turn you into a frog.
Smiling as if they had just arranged to eat Chinese food tomorrow night, Aoko walked towards Toko.
Wait, who taught you how to do something like that? My mentor was Alice, of course. She always was an odd duck who wouldn't you agree?
The elder Awazaki sister's brow knitted so hard it could have produced a sweater. Perhaps this is why her sister would stay a novice forever.
Sojiro, get out of here. Unless you're a creepy pervert, then go ahead and watch. I don't care.
Huh? As she spoke, she began removing her sister's overcoat. The uncomfortable look in Toko's eyes compared to the strangely cheerful one in Aoko's caused Sojiro to hesitate. Was it really okay to leave the two of them alone? Eventually he nodded. This was just a weird game between sisters. Best not be a pervert. I am so confused. But I agree. Muttering more to himself than anything, he ducked into an empty classroom.
Hey, what kind of dumbass formula is that? Are we really related? Afraid so. You took all the artistic genes for yourself without thinking about your poor little sister. If you want to blame anyone, blame yourself.
Down the cold, dilapidated hallway, cries of sadness, joy, and anguish rang out. Outside, the fully bloomed white flower petals floated one by one into the night. Standing among the ballet of petals, Alice gazed up at the sky. The blossoms gathered in a cloud, then slowly vanished as though falling asleep. Soon, not a single flower would remain, and the clearing would return to a snowy tundra. The magic had ended. In a matter of minutes, the past would return to the rightful place, along with its time shared between the boy and the girl. The old school building was still. Alice embraced the silence and patiently waited. After a while, Sojiro emerged from the building and Alice released a puff of white breath. A small sigh of relief, it was over. Sojiro approached carrying Aoko, cradling her in his arms. Was she asleep? Her eyes were closed and seemed peaceful. Her hair and limp body dangled like a silk drape. She looked just like the Sleeping Beauty. So, you decided to wait for us, Alice? He said, holding Aoko with little effort. Alice nodded.
What happened to Toko?
To be honest, I don't really know, but she's gone. Azaki said she placed a really strong curse on her, so she wouldn't come back to Misaki for 10 years. After that, she stood and watched Toko run away until she was out of sight, then she collapsed. Alice's response was brief, as if she was wondering if things were really so simple. She seemed more concerned about Toko than Aoko, which made Sojiro concerned about Alice and Aoko's relationship more than anything. Okay, well, anyway, what's going on with Aoko? He asked nonchalantly as he looked at Aoko breathing deeply in her sleep.
It looks like the variables are still balancing out. Since her time diverged from our current time, she likely won't open her eyes until all the gears are lined up again.
Sojiro nodded in understanding very clearly, still not comprehending a word Alice had just said. Still the same person! He has no idea what's going on. It's a bit of an anticlimax. I can't tell if Awazaki or Miss Toko won.
Right? Marriage battles aren't always cut and dry. It's not always just about who was more powerful. If Toko's objective was to discover that Awazaki's true magic, then Aoko lost the moment she used it. Everything that happened after was merely the triumphant winner being accosted by the loser, Alice said as she turned her sights to the forest. Even Sojiro could tell that was Alice's way of saying, let's go home. Yeah, let's go. At this rate, you'll both catch a cold. Oh, I almost forgot. When Awazaki cursed Miss Toko, she did something else.
Sojiro trailed off, hoping Alice would tell him what it was, but a stony and somewhat affected gaze was her response.
Did you watch Shizuki?
No, Awazaki told me to get out.
Good. Did she say what the curse was placed on? What curse she placed on her? Something about turning her into a frog. Sojiro's explanation made Alex's expression darken. Aoko was still a long way from learning any sort of polymorph spells. Her thoughts prevented her from finishing the sentence. In actuality, it was perfectly within Aoko's abilities, considering where she was in the time of that moment. As Aoko had said, Toko would not be able to dispel the curse for 10 years. And the Aoko of this time had not the ability to use such a curse, which meant Toko did not have anyone to bound the curse to. No matter how much she researched dispelling powerful curses, she could not do it with the Aoko of this timeline. Aoko only cut Toko a little bit. It's nothing for you to worry about. I expected her to do something much worse. After her slightly unsettling remark, Alice quietly began to walk. Sojiro followed her, Aoko in his arms. Together they left the clearing and moved into the forest. As they did, Sojiro abruptly froze. Shizuki. He looked back toward the old school building field with a strange expression. Was it homesickness he felt? Though, this was only his second time seeing it. He had a nostalgic feeling like he would never be back. He looked like a child saying goodbye to an old toy that was to be thrown away. Seeing his expression, Alice felt a hint of sympathy and chided herself. Something on your mind? She asked him, watching the flowery garden fade into a snowy field. Sojiro shook his head. Not really. It's just... I feel like I know that place. It's weird, right? I didn't feel that way when I got here. He stood staring at the tundra for what seemed like an eternity, reluctant to leave. If she left him there, he would still be gazing at it by morning, probably even longer. But there was no point in doing that. In the end, Alice was the only one who would remember the beautiful scenery he yearned for. Does it really look that familiar? Not at all. Not one bit of it. Then it's just your imagination. Sojiro nodded at Alice's harsh conclusion. He smiled slightly, deciding it was pointless to want something that did not exist. Yeah, maybe I saw it in a dream. A dream where I was happy. Severing the ties that bound him, Sojiro turned his back away from the snowy clearing, away from the unfamiliar yet familiar place where he had known happiness. Let's get back. I'm tired, and Aozaki's heavy. How about we have a warm cup of tea once we're back at the mansion, Alice? Sojiro spoke her name with a smile. Her heart skipped a beat. Since when did he start saying her name so casually like that? Somehow she managed to nod before beginning to walk again. As he moved away from her, she asked a small question to his back. Is she heavier than me? Please don't answer that. Please don't answer that. Aoko was a bit taller than Alice, so naturally she would weigh more, but Alice wanted to hear him say it anyway. Not one to disappoint, Sojiro answered without missing a beat. God damn it. That's not a question you're supposed to answer. Definitely. By about 20 pounds. Fuck! Are you out here calling Aoko fat? You do realize if Aoko knew you said that, she'd kill you. It would be well earned. Judging by Alice's tone, she was probably going to tell Aoko later. You're kinda mean, Alice. You know, I did round down too, just to be nice. Huh? That expression! That expression! I love that expression of her. His attempts at being kind had likely drawn him closer to his deathbed. No good, huh? He asked nervously. Alice could not help but crack a smile at his innocence. You should have said I rounded up, bitch. However, she was not used to smiling in front of others, so she turned away and walked into the woods. From Sojiro's perspective, she was storming off in a mood. What? She must really care if she's mad at me for saying that about you, right, Aozaki? Sojiro rushed to catch up with Alice, gently carrying Aoko along the way.
Though the prince lacked the courage to kiss the sleeping princess, he had at least saved her and was bringing her back to her castle. Despite what he had been through, he did not look like your typical hero. Still, in this story at least, he most certainly was. It's over. Let's go to that archive. I guess next week's going to be our last week. Just looking at this. Holy. I'm not ready for this. There's not a piece of me that was ready for the story to end, but it's here. And yet there are so many other CGs that we have not collected. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10 songs that we have not finished. Well, I guess we're going to be ending this next week. Fuck. You know that feeling when you're about to finish a TV show that you really enjoy, you know the final episode is coming, and you don't want it to come because you want to enjoy the point you're at so much that you're afraid of it to end? That's the